We are thrilled to have you joining us for our latest and greatest marquee event, the Brand Innovators 2021 Media Buying Summit.
Welcome, everyone. Let's get started.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about this show. All right, so I'm back.
I have two dogs too, so they might want to join the party later.
We have a truly fantastic program planned for you with what I would say is an epic group of speakers, senior media buyers, and marketing leadership from some of the world's biggest brands.
We looked at media more holistically than ever. Consumers don't necessarily know the difference between a paid side of the house versus an influencer, creative versus organic. To them, it all looks like your brand, it's your advertising.
It's another thing when you have a brand that's 50 years old that people think of as a brick and mortar retailer, and you've got to figure out how you're going to tell a story to get them to rethink and create a moment of reconsideration for your brand.
So again, how do we use data? We looked at regionally, where do we have inventory? Because for a while, we stopped making cars and we started making ventilators and masks. First of all, there was a lot of people who really wanted cars because it's your own personal space. Spending really went way back up. And so like at the end of the year, we were back at like our normal budget levels and launching the Escalade.
What we decided that we were going to define content commerce as shortening the distance between inspiration and purchase. It does away with that kind of multi-step, lengthier sequence of product searching, researching. And I think what's really interesting about this space is that these kind of micro moments of discovery are happening more and more in your social feed and through short form video that you're interacting with.
There's just too much now, too much clutter. And we've gone from 30-second ads to now 15-second ads and 6-second ads. So I feel like that is an opportunity for us to reset the balance here. And I feel like that's a huge opportunity and to create, I think, a much better ad experience.
I will always recommend that you want to have the people who work on your business to be as close to dedicated on your business as you possibly can. If you know that they're working for you, then their priorities aren't split.
Being on the streets, connecting with our consumers is critical. So we have a division structure that enables and empowers our local teams to make decisions based on what is right for their market.
Like many other brands, we just had to adapt to make sure that we're meeting customer needs, as well as their changing media consumption habits, right? So fortunately for us, last year, our various creative agencies and media agencies and partners were just very accommodating as we were trying to navigate those challenges.
I think 2021 will be a very interesting year as we all kind of learn and understand the new dynamics at play and how they impact all of our respective businesses.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to officially kick off today's programming by welcoming onto the stage Nicole Genscher, the Senior Manager of Research and Insights at Ground Truth, who will be presenting a keynote on consumer trends during and post-pandemic. Welcome, Nicole.
Thanks, Izzy. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Nicole, and I lead research and insights on the marketing team at Ground Truth. On behalf of Ground Truth, I'm excited to kick off this event and share insights with you about current consumer behaviors as we head back into our new normal after a year that has fundamentally changed all of our lives, to say the very least. So we'll be looking at foot traffic data over the past 4 months, along with a few key trends that have emerged out of the pandemic. So in order to best understand where the data I'll be referencing to comes from, I need to briefly talk about who Ground Truth is. Ground Truth is a location-based marketing and advertising company. We see real-world foot traffic data from the millions of mobile devices on our platform. And when looked in aggregate, we can uncover trends about where and when consumers are going, which is especially insightful at this time as more people start to feel comfortable going out into the real world. So for brand marketers, I imagine this type of information is crucial when beginning to ramp up marketing campaigns again. So I hope you find it useful. While we have data on nearly every category, location, today I'll be focusing on 3 key verticals: retail, restaurant, and travel. So let's begin with retail. So it's been reported that retail sales surged 10.7% in March, and we're up 50% year over year, with sporting goods, clothing, and food and beverage leading the gains. As more Americans are vaccinated, business restrictions are rolled back, and people begin to resume normal daily activities. So that was the best month for retail sales since the first round of stimulus checks back in May of 2020. However, since then, sales have stalled a bit in April, but nonetheless, total retail sales are expected to increase as we move further into 2021. Households have accumulated at least $2.3 trillion in excess savings during the pandemic, which should underpin spending this year. Many economists believe that retail sales growth will be solid throughout the rest of the year, citing that consumers have billions of dollars in stimulus payments saved up and will gradually spend that over the next few years. So now let's look at what the foot traffic is showing us for the retail sector. You'll see this foot traffic snapshot chart for all of the verticals, which basically shows indexed average daily foot traffic from February through May of this year. So starting with one of the bigger holidays in Q1, which was Valentine's Day, the day before Valentine's Day saw a 37% increase in foot traffic, which was much lower than in 2019, but nonetheless above average, which is great. And then on March 20th, we did see a 77% increase in foot traffic, almost exactly aligned with when stimulus checks were directly deposited into people's bank accounts over that weekend. So that was really the surge that aligned with the sales data, why March was so positive. And then by April, traffic did begin to trail off a little bit, but the day before Easter, foot traffic was 67% above average, and then sort of dips after that. But you can see Memorial Day weekend, it's starting to increase again. And so we dived into some of the categories. This is the change in foot traffic from February to March. So we wanted to see if people are spending their money and are going back into stores, where are they going? So total retail sales foot traffic, total retail foot traffic was up 33%. Followed by the apparel and accessories, sporting goods, and footwear brands doing the best. So I know there's been so many more events, weddings, places to go. Apparel and footwear companies are doing great. Dress sales are through the roof. So this totally aligns with the sales data that I briefly mentioned as well. And then sporting goods stores are up. I think maybe people found new hobbies over the pandemic that they're eager to continue as the weather improves. So these are some of the categories that are seeing the largest gains. And then just a little tidbit about beauty stores. They also saw almost a 30% increase from February to March. And a few retailers have noted an increase in their lipstick sales as people begin to take their masks off and want to be unique and put makeup on again. So that's an interesting tidbit. And then malls. Malls are always a big topic of conversation in the retail space. We always talk about the doom and gloom of malls, but we're actually seeing foot traffic increase. A lot of the big retail chains, though, closed their stores in malls, but that left vacated spaces for direct-to-consumer brands to try out their brick and mortar strategies with pop-up stores. Malls are also reinventing themselves by becoming more experience-driven, filling the vacancies again with bowling alleys, trampoline parks, and AR and VR attractions. Simon Property Group CEO actually predicted that the shopping mall is poised for a comeback due to broader social trends such as residents moving to the suburbs, less commuting into the cities, and a drastic rise in work from home. So he, of course, will say this, but he is thinking that this all points towards an impending mall rebound. So what we did was we looked at year-over-year change in foot traffic by month. So obviously February and March of 2020, things were still pretty normal. So foot traffic was lower this year, but as we look into April and May, we are seeing malls rebounding, and traffic was 288% higher in 2021 versus 2020. So now let's move towards QSR and restaurant trends. So this is the level of public excitement to go out and eat at a restaurant. I know I'm definitely eager to get out and meet with friends and family, but half of people surveyed are excited to start dining out, along with the 24% that have already been doing this. So around 3/4 of people are, eager to get out and eat at restaurants. So let's see what the foot traffic shows us. So again, this is index daily foot traffic starting from February. And this big dip here in the beginning of the quarter was due to the winter storm power crisis that happened in the South. 3 big storms that happened sort of had everyone staying home. But then towards February 25th, the end of the month, we started seeing above average foot traffic for the category. And it sort of leveled off and stayed neutral, in April and May. Again, we wanted to look at which categories within the restaurant vertical have been seeing the biggest rebounds. And, QSR chains, many of them already had drive-through and carry-out prior to the pandemic. So they fared pretty well during the pandemic and are still rebounding the quickest. For reference, drive-through traffic grew 19% in 2020, and carry-out accounted for 38% of traffic, which was up 21% compared to 2019. So I think a lot of these restaurant brands, if they didn't have these options available for customers, I think they're certainly implementing them, and something that people might want to keep continuing to do throughout the rest of the year. One other trend that we wanted to call out that I think can apply to all of the restaurant categories along with other, retailers is just a change in the time of day that people are going out and doing things. So it's really apparent in coffee shop time of day traffic. So the lighter green color is 2020 traffic, and the darker green is 2021. Obviously when people were commuting into their offices, coffee shops were seeing a huge peak from 7 to 9 a.m. And now that people are working from home, foot traffic is 15% lower from 7 to 9 a.m. And a little bit more consistent throughout the day. So there's not really this huge spike in traffic and then it dips for the rest of the day. And I know that brands like Starbucks have actually changed the employee shifts to accommodate for these new peak periods of foot traffic. So just something to think about with, the new way consumers are out and about in their local areas. Another pandemic-driven trend are what has been coined streeteries, which I personally love. These are the spaces that restaurants have implemented on the sidewalks, in parking lots. And here in Astoria, they have actually now this summer been renovating their outdoor spaces to become more like lounges and just nicer spaces for people to sit outside. So 55% of people feel comfortable dining indoors, but 66% still feel more comfortable dining outdoors, at least when the weather's nicer. So I think this is a trend that people want to stay that has come out of the pandemic. So the final category is travel trends, which again, I'm definitely eager to start traveling again, although I haven't been on an airplane since last March, but this is the level of public excitement to go on vacation once the coronavirus pandemic is under control. 63% of people surveyed are excited to start traveling, along with the 10% that are already doing this. There was a similar chart for public excitement to start traveling for business, which the numbers were much lower, but because we're talking about consumer behavior, I figured let's show what people are doing in their leisure. So people do want to start traveling again. So we looked at Memorial Day weekend as well, because it's the first big holiday that people are vaccinated and want to travel. This is the foot traffic to the top 50 airports starting in February. It was obviously much lower in the beginning of February and has been steadily increasing. And May 28th of Memorial Day weekend was the highest foot traffic day since February at 32% above the daily average. So I think people were at the airports this weekend, and we dug a little bit deeper into Memorial Day weekend patterns, because again, sort of the first big long weekend where people are vaccinated, the weather's nicer, and everyone wants to, sort of get back to normal. So the categories that fared the best, again, airports were 214% higher in 2021 versus 2020, followed by parks and beaches, beauty, casual dining, and department stores. So I think people overall were eager to get out, relax, treat themselves, go out to eat and shop. So that's sort of what I've gathered from what people were doing over Memorial Day weekend compared to last year. On the flip side, categories that did better in 2020 compared to this year were car rentals. So I think a lot of people took road trips last year, avoiding airports. Warehouse retailers did better, such as Costco and BJ's. You can remember everyone was stocking up on toilet paper last year. QSRs, where people could get a quick bite to eat, and then big box retailers like Walmart and Target did better last year. Maybe more people were hosting barbecues. And at least in New York, the weather wasn't too nice this year. So that could have contributed to that decline as well. So Memorial Day weekend is sort of some of the most recent data that we have, but on a daily basis, we are updating our Ground Truth foot traffic tracker, which you can find on our website. This tracker is something we've put together because of COVID. Everyone wants to track what people are doing, discovering new trends. So we have a ton of different categories on here. As you can see, you can drill down to the state and even zip code level with these images at the bottom. So I will be sending around this presentation after, but feel free to visit our website to find more data. And so I'm excited to hear from our brand marketers today about the trends they're seeing and how they plan to move forward towards brighter days ahead. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions, and it's been a pleasure sharing my thoughts with you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. And what a great way to open today's programming with these insights into consumers' behavior over the past year and what's to come. I'm finding it really interesting to see what trends will remain. I love the outdoor dining, so I'm excited about that. But also, versus what ones have come and will kind of fade out. So appreciate your time and thank you for your presentation. So for our first fireside chat of the day, I'm really excited to welcome to the stage Madhavi Reese, the VP of Brand at Whole Foods. And this session will be moderated by Catherine Fanone, the VP of Sales at Ground Truth. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. The virtual stage.
The virtual stage.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks, Catherine. Okay, so the hardest part about this webinar is going to be learning how to pronounce my name. Okay,
yes.
So
yes.
Madhavi, we'll practice. The emphasis is on the first A, Madhavi.
Madhavi.
You got it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm Fanone. So everyone says Fanone, but
So we share that.
That's right.
Hi, good morning. I'm well. Thank you.
Great. So I'd love to kick off the conversation, VP of Brand. is a seemingly large role, right? So I would love for you to just give us the scope of everything that falls in your world, which is a lot. So
yeah,
tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for anybody that is wondering, I have this wonderfully innocuous title of VP of Brand here at Whole Foods Market. And Catherine's absolutely right. My role is actually very broad in scope. So in addition to all things creative and design, I also oversee things like marketing ops, new store opening support, community marketing, and also all of our in-store experience efforts. So that is my role, and a little bit about me in case you're curious. I work at Whole Foods, so I'm definitely an eater. I'm definitely a cook. I'm also a distance runner, and I'm a total self-improvement junkie. I live in the beautiful city of Austin, which is really kind of my adopted home. I've talked to Catherine a little bit about this, and I can tell you that I've lived all over the world. And to me, there's no better place in the world to meet creative people and to really explore creativity in everything from music to art to tech to food. So I'm very grateful that this is our headquarters and this is where, I get to live my life, even when it's 101 degrees.
That's good. You got to keep Austin weird, right? Isn't that got to keep it weird. So, well, good. Well, thank you for that. I think that additional context is just everything that you oversee will really help, kind of wrap our minds around, the answers to some of these questions, because you see so much. Coming from Ground Truth, as you all heard Nicole, we are, looking at foot traffic trends and how consumer behaviors have changed. I would love your perspective on how this last year has really, changed your business, how you are adapting to consumer needs. Just love your perspective on that. Because I think, the CPG and the grocery space were maybe impacted differently than retail and restaurant and travel, right? Maybe fared a little bit better in some ways than other verticals.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just like all the verticals that you mentioned, certainly COVID had significant impacts on our business on pretty much every level. And one of the largest, I think, was just the way in which our customers, Whole Foods customers specifically, changed their shopping habits almost overnight. So for example, and I pulled some numbers here, pre-pandemic, use of online shopping for our customers was barely over 10% of their budget on average. During the pandemic, so in that last sort of year, the average actually changed to 50%. So, a 40% leap, like almost, at least within 7 days, is pretty staggering. So as you can imagine, it affected everything from sort of supply to assortment planning to certainly to delivery logistics, store support, even marketing. Big impact for us that we suddenly had to go from like the age-old mission of we need to drive traffic and we need to drive demand to physical store to really kind of walking back and saying, how do we help customers stay safe and really understand how to access and use delivery while we're building that plane that we had not focused on. So what is lovely about this, and I'm sure it will be a theme today, is that there are lots of horrible things that happened as a result of COVID, but I actually think that it forced a kind of urgent creativity across the functions in our organization, but I think probably in many industries. And I can say that at Whole Foods, certainly we didn't do everything perfectly, but I'm proud to say that, we were able to adapt to our customers' needs without compromising the things that are really true to our DNA. So things like quality standards, that's what we're known for. That's what our customers trust us for. but also things internally like team member happiness. We at the end of the day are totally team member dependent. So we made a lot of effort on that front as well. So that was during COVID.
Right.
That was one big thing.
So what of the things that, obviously delivery is here to stay and pickup is here to stay, what are the sustainable items that, you see going forever? What are things that maybe you slow down a little bit in the consumer behavior? It maybe isn't as much of a need as it was in 2020 as we pull out of this thing.
Great question. Yeah, I definitely think, there's no doubt that delivery will continue to be an important part of our customers' repertoire, just in terms of how they shop. But what's really interesting is that as we come out, sort of reemerge from this pandemic, and I think Nicole talked a little about like just the urge and her personal urge to get on a plane and go.
Right.
What we're seeing is, at least for our customers in particular, I think our customers are leaning back into what makes Whole Foods, which at the end of the day, 2 words, it's our stores. Our stores are that. So it's absolutely true that our customers, a lot of them learn to shop online and they really appreciate the convenience. And that is something that we hope to continue to roll out in partnership with our friends in Seattle. But we also see that amongst our brand loyalists, the majority actually want to return to their pre-COVID routines of in-store shopping. So they have the access, and they have the ability to do that. But they're actually, we hear over and over again in the research that we do, that they have this desire to come back to the things they love about Whole Foods. So just to give you some examples, and I personally relate to this as well, people miss our hot bars. They miss like going to the store and looking at that beautiful, colorful produce section and picking their own stuff. They miss, one of the things they miss the most, samples. People love the samples. And so that's something that we're talking about. Like, how do we get back to that in a safe and responsible way? They, in particular, really also like sort of that leisurely walk through the store. When we looked at just time in store for people that were coming, what we're seeing is that is growing because people like go with a list, but they also like discovering new items. It's a little bit of an adventure. So that on top of all the social interactions with our, I will say, very unique employees and sort of that tribe of customers that makes Whole Foods, there's a longing to get back to that. And, just as the brand person here, I really think, that we say this a lot, but it's so true that for us, we're just so much more than a transaction. We're so much more than a grocery store. It's good and bad because we have to invest a lot into it, but we really have to focus back on our experience. We have to think about how do we go back to being a discovery engine? How do we reclaim that idea that for many people, Whole Foods is the place they go to learn about new ingredients and to actually learn how to cook with them. So we just want to make sure that as we go forward and extend things like our delivery footprint, we're not doing that instead of investing in our in-store experience, because that's truly where our magic lives.
Right. I think that's what a lot of brands are have struggled with, right? Like they're in this virtual world, and even at our company, any other companies, how do you make that connection when it's virtual or when it's delivery? You lose so much of the connection with whether it be your coworkers or your customers. There is so much to be said with, connecting with people in person. So I think that's great that you're not just abandoning the in-store piece. That's a strong foothold for your brand. That's great.
Yeah, and Catherine, and I know as we go through this day, I will be curious to learn, for me, the big question is, can you? And should you be striving to deliver the same sort of the magic of in-store with the magic of what you can give people digital. I think both experiences can be magical, but I don't know the answer to should they be the same.
Sure. Or the same focus, like, the same level of effort. That's great.
Exactly.
Yep. Have you had to adjust your messaging in terms of whether that's media messaging, internal messaging to your team members? What has that shift in messaging looked like to inform internal and external efforts?
Yeah, I'll start with external. I think external for us, very quickly during the pandemic, we had to do what everybody else had to do. We just had to sort of figure out what are the operational consequences for us, what are not only sort of the local ordinances that require us to sort of inform customers of certain things, but what are the rules that we want to put into place, both internally and externally, and how do we get that message out? So all of our mechanisms went into sort of inform mode. Now, as we come back out, I hope that what you're also seeing is that we're doing what we can to slowly sort of refocus, not so much on information, but on inspiration. Mm-hmm. So we really want to just kind of turn the table a little bit and get people re-energized around just great food experiences and having those connections. So we're doing our best to enable that in all of our channels, while at the same time, one of our biggest challenges is that the rules are different depending on store, depending on region, and depending on what's happening in a particular market. So, there's certainly a temptation to just, I'm tempted as well, to just flip the lights and just say, we're back and we welcome you back. But we also want to do that in a way that is responsible to the second part of your question, to our team members. And we're being very careful to make sure that those team members know that they are actually our first priority. So if there is any hesitation on anybody's part to either come to work in a certain way, that is not something that we shut down. We listen to it. We try to accommodate every request. We don't yet have sort of one policy that applies to everyone. It's just too difficult to have that. So it is a little bit more time consuming, but we are definitely internally trying to lean on the fact that one of our values is team member happiness. So we really need to do what we can in a moment like this to live that value and to explicitly message it out.
Mm-hmm. So I've done several of these brand innovator chats, and all of the most successful companies that I've listened to, they start with their team. And if they have a happy team, it translates to happy customers, but buy more. It just is a snowball. So I think that is the perfect place to focus, because it's a snowball and it all starts from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very reassuring to hear, because I sometimes think there is, I'm not sure that the whole world operates in that way. So there's, sometimes a question of, are we too hyper focused on that value? Right. But I don't think it's something that anyone here is willing to compromise. So right. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, definitely. And on the inspiration piece, it makes total sense that that's a place where you are focused on. I had read, this was probably several months ago now, about how Pinterest had increased their user base by 100 million people or something during the pandemic because of that inspiration and wanting to learn anything, whether that's cooking or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it makes sense that, the inspiration is where you're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of engagement. I think that's what you're seeing. Even Nicole mentioned seeing a lot from the sports sector. People are learning a new hobby or learning something else.
Yeah, and just to pick up on your comment about Pinterest, this is another trend we're seeing coming out of the lockdown. Sort of like shopping online. It's certainly true. A lot of us learned how to cook during the pandemic. I mean, like all of a sudden everybody knows how to make sourdough bread, how to poach your eggs, or like, even for us, like suddenly people know how to have their veggies as a main dish, which is very different. But what we see is that while certainly cooking is a pandemic acquired skill for a lot of Americans, we also see something that one of our folks talks about is cooking burnout. Like that routine of cooking the same thing. I don't know if you can relate to this, but like the process and the effort in planning and prepping and cleaning, just kind of the repetitiveness of all of it. Like we just see people are a little over it. And, to everything that was discussed before, we do want to be out. We want to be inspired. We don't just want to eat to live. We want to kind of actually want to be inspired by our plates. We want to sort of have a change from sauteed broccoli and, the cauliflower main that you learned from master class somewhere. So, I do think that at first didn't really have a choice. So we did make the most of it, and that's pretty awesome. But I do think as we come out of survival mode, for us, it's really important that we keep in mind that we not only help people survive, like our role as kind of a badge brand, like we help people thrive. Like we want them, we actually talk about ourselves as a feel-good sanctuary. Like we want people genuinely to feel great about food. Right. So, we're doing all kinds of stuff to try to reimagine what we can do just, with things like our venues, which are like the little eateries in the store and things like that. Like how can we help give you a little piece of that back so that when you're not in the mood to go learn something or execute in your own kitchen, you always have that as an option.
Right. I'm happy to stay at home and cook. I just don't want to unload the dishwasher. If I could have an unload the dishwasher fairy, like we would stay home and cook all the time. It's like, I think that's one thing that I noticed, especially when you're working from home, that's like an additional meal that I hadn't been doing, right? Like, so that's an additional, an additional meal, an additional something that I'm not going out to a restaurant or hadn't been. So
hot breakfast.
Right.
Who knows?
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew it didn't have to be at a granola bar on the train?
That's right.
So your 365 private label recently got a brand refresh. Can you talk about, what was the objective or the vision for the refresh, or what was the impetus for it?
Sure. Yeah, that refresh actually started before or was at least established as something that we wanted to do before the pandemic. And as you can imagine, it took was slightly delayed, took quite a hit because of all the supplier issues and all of that during it. But the intent of that refresh was really twofold. One is, one of our goals is to really help people understand the value of great food. And 365 is sort of like, I'll call it a badge, or like, like a good housekeeping seal of approval. That's how we think of it. That helps us merge good value with incredible quality standards. So we had the brand in existence, but what we saw with the packaging that existed on shelf is that while it may have been our intent all along, nobody got that. Nobody was getting that messaging. So you had sort of what people perceived as, oh yeah, this is like Whole Foods. Whole Foods is lesser than brand. So now I'm at Whole Foods, and because I don't want to spend all that money, I'm going to buy the compromised house brand versus we certainly had a lot of brand fans, but even the brand fans told us, there's probably a little bit of something less with this brand than with the regular Whole Foods stuff. So obviously, we only have two house brands, and that's 365 and Whole Foods Market. It was really important for us to make sure, because, quality standards is a fundamental part of what we do. Half the company makes decisions based on quality standards. We really wanted to make sure that we do a better job of telling that story. So not only did we do the packaging refresh, we tried to then do a lot of marketing to help people understand that it's really not an either or decision. You're not trading down. You're just kind of getting great value for pantry essentials. So it is very much sort of our access brand. We want to make it more attainable. We are quickly now, with things revving back up, expanding across categories so that you don't have to make 3 trips or you don't have to overspend for things that may not be as important to you. So that's sort of our efforts in that area have been engineered to try to, one, better communicate to you what the role of that brand is within our portfolio, and secondly, to give us internally a focus for how we want to innovate moving forward.
That makes sense, because I think you see that in other places in your life, like your clothing, right? Like maybe your basics, you don't spend as much, but you want like a really great jacket or a really nice steak, right? So like, I think it's just the equivalent of what you see in your life in other places too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So you touched on this a little bit. So brands and retailer loyalty during this time, maybe tested a little bit, maybe less so in the grocery vertical. Maybe people are more tried and true. Maybe, delivery, they know what their delivery service is that they enjoy. But what changes have you seen for new versus repeat shoppers, or in-store versus delivery? I know you kind of mentioned that your delivery has skyrocketed, but talk to us about new versus repeat customers.
Yeah, so our repeat customers, and this is sort of bucks kind of industry trends a little bit, our repeat customers are what I will call borderline fanatic. Like we have almost irrational levels of brand loyalty in certain areas, which is wonderful and very hard to explain sometimes. But, we're very thankful for these customers. They did not, once they could get out of their homes, they were the first back into our stores, and they were sort of protected from any kind of attrition because of the intense emotional sort of loyalty that they have to our brand. Our new customers, we learned that on average pre-pandemic, we're shopping about 8 different retailers for their groceries. So what we learned is, while they didn't have that much brand loyalty to us, to be honest, they didn't have very much brand loyalty to any other brand either. And our the way that we think about it is that our goal is not necessarily to convert you and make you believe that, we are the only brand. We fully accept that we are not a brand for everyone, but we do believe that we have quality superiority versus our competitors. So if high quality food is really important to you, what we want to try to do is educate and prove to our new customers that is an area of focus for us, and that's an area that is unrivaled within the industry. So you'll see we did some website updates. A big initiative for us this year is to really kind of unpack and start telling our quality standard story in store and digitally more loudly, because we have it. We just need to make sure that we are communicating it in a way that is relevant and understandable for the average customer.
Right. And I know you can't speak a ton to some of the cool innovation that's happening with our friends in Seattle. Anything you can share about Palm Scan? I know it's being tested. Is there anything that you can sneak peek? Anything like that? Yeah.
I can say, I will say, gosh, everybody was a little bit concerned, like, my gosh, what's going to happen with this partnership between Whole Foods and Amazon, including our little like culture of like hippie executives, very concerned about this. Never have we been so grateful to have had the fortunate timing that we have. And I got to tell you, like, this is, they have taught us, Amazon has and continues to teach us so much about technology, about how to innovate, about how to iterate faster. It has really been an incredible partnership. So what I can share is, what I'll say is that on Palm technology specifically, I think you read a little bit about this in the press, but we've been working with Amazon on coming up with ways to remove friction. So, for example, we know that when you come to our stores, one of the big pain points for people is like they got to stand in line, they have to look for their card, you have to then do your Prime code. All of that is not a very happy experience. So as a brand, a lot of our partnerships with Amazon and a lot of our innovation moving forward with Amazon is less focused on sort of like, what else can we do to just surprise and awe you and delight you? Whole Foods already knows how to delight you with food. What we are focused on is what are the things that we can do, like Palm technology, that will actually remove some of those friction points. At the end of the day, I actually, I always believe, I say this to my team all the time, I think people do want faster transactions, but I don't think they want fast food. So we have to find a way to give them that beautiful food experience sort of as delightfully as possible. And things like Palm technology are gonna help us do exactly that.
Mm-hmm. We are living in the future.
We really are.
Right? Like, that's crazy. I mean, when you can have your delivery of your groceries to your doorstep or just wave your palm at the grocery store, we are truly living in another time. So
yeah, totally.
So obviously, when you mentioned just everything that your role covers, what can vendors and partners help you do to be more thoughtful, other than media executions, right? Are there in-store experiences or creative, or, what could vendors be more thoughtful in the way that they come to you with ideas?
Yeah, I think for us, a big thing is we, are constantly looking for new ways to engage our customers in new ways, in sort of, whether that's new channels, whether that's specific creative tactics, what have you. We're always trying to figure out sort of, I'll give you 3 areas that we're really focused on. 1, how do we better communicate and deliver quality standards to our customers? People sort of have this loose association with Whole Foods as high quality stuff. How can we reinforce that? How can we educate the world? Our purpose at the end of the day, is to nourish people and the planet. We are a mission-based company. So things that would help us sort of activate against that mission is just sort of an area that I think is really important. Another area, and especially as we come out of this unusual time in our lives, is, we're our number one equity when we ask people is that we help them live a healthier lifestyle. That is literally, it's a metric we track. It's something that we get a lot of credit for. So we see that sort of as a responsibility. Mm-hmm. How are we helping people live a healthier lifestyle? And for us, by the way, healthy is not like wellness, like physical health. It's very much well-being, social, emotional. You're part of a tribe, all of that. So things that help us kind of activate in a different way, or even understand what it means to be healthy in a different way, is really fascinating. And then to your point of like, you know, like every retailer, we want to delight our customers in every channel. So we obviously have the good fortune of, you know, having exposure to a lot of partners because of Amazon and because of the work that we've done in the past, but we're always open to learning more and trying different things.
Yeah. And how far are you planning for some of these programs, right? Like I know under your umbrella, there's new store openings. I'm sure that you're planning for those years potentially in advance. You know, what are there different initiatives? And I'm sure this is a loaded question. Like how far in advance are you planning for different initiatives?
Yeah, so certainly for big things that involve real estate
Sure.
and things like that, or new tech or anything like that, that's really a very long planning cycle, years and years and years and years. Also now, you know, we have to go through some processes to make sure that, you know, Amazon has, it's an approved vendor with Amazon, so that extends our cycle a little bit. In addition to that, on a marketing standpoint, we're really a lot like fashion. We plan a year out. We're thinking about trends, we're thinking about activations, we're thinking about labor implications, all of those things literally a year out. That does not mean that we don't spontaneously make changes.
Sure. I think if anything, if last year told us anything, we need to be nimble.
Absolutely. So we try to stay agile, but for the most part, we really try to look a year ahead. And I can say certainly in my role for the things that we do in marketing, we have a lot of commitments. So to do something new, it does take a year to fully understand the value and then to be able to get the organization aligned that this sort of new activity is worthwhile.
Sure. So this is my favorite question, to make you look inside your crystal ball a little bit. Kind of what are your predictions for the rest of 21 and maybe even going into 2022? You know, I don't think anyone last year probably predicted what was going to happen. So it's always fun to see if you could predict the future in this new world.
And do you mean specifically, Catherine, on food or
just the industry, right? Maybe just take your sector, the grocery store or technology, if there's other technologies that you could see coming down that maybe your competitors are doing, anything like that.
Yeah, so I'll take both actually. And so I have been thinking about this question a little bit. And I think from a technology standpoint, I think there's going to be continued hunger, especially for retailers, on options. So I think people are going to want to shop in many different ways. And that's both to better enable convenience, which is certainly a lot of innovation happens there, but also to enhance sort of delightful experiences. I think people are going to want to be able to have both. So I don't think that there will be a slowdown in the incredible things that come out of that, whether there's incredible things or things like palm technology or things like, you know, new ways to think about venues and ordering and team member engagement. And the other thing I think will happen a lot for marketers specifically is we're going to have to figure out how we can really kind of embrace all the revenge living. You know, I'm sure you've heard about this trend happening out there. I think holiday is going to be huge this year. A lot of people really missed that, including myself last year. So, you know, whatever our holiday plans were in the past, we're really thinking about, are those the right plans? Do we need to amplify certain things? Do we need to turn down other things? So that's an area where I think that there will be an incredible innovation.
Sure.
And it's a little thing, but I do think this continued activity of like just kind of a little bit of cooking fatigue is going to start to, just because you know how to do something doesn't mean you want to do it for the rest of your life. So I do think that it'll be interesting to watch as people, especially as people return to work. A lot of people are going back to work, how sort of they start to use their time differently and what impact that has on industries like, learning and personal growth that require time investment.
Right. I think it's going to be, figuring out what the new balance is across your whole life, right? I think it's like, how many days a week do you want to go into work? Is it, 2 or 3? And being at home versus being in work, cooking versus going out? Like, what are the new balances that everyone is going to kind of start to feel their groove a little bit as we get back to normal?
If you figure it out, can you please text me, because I have not figured that out.
No. And there's no timeline, no rush. We'll slowly get into our groove, I think. We have one question. Someone says, can you talk more about Palm technology? Not sure if there's anything specific, this person.
So what I can say about Palm technology in general is what it is, which is basically, a biometric scan that connects your Amazon credentials with literally your palm. So when you scan your palm, sort of like you scan your phone when you check in for a flight, what it does is it essentially takes in all your information, including your Prime member number. And then as you shop the store, it automatically sort of connects what you buy with that technology. So you don't have to do things like stand in line to check out. So it's very much in test mode right now. This is another one where it's a very interesting dilemma for us, because so much of our experience is team member experience, just the interaction that you have with our team members. So while we want to give you the convenience, we have a lot of customers saying, I want Amazon out, because I don't want this like weird technology following me around. So it's an opt-in.
Is it only in the one store in Seattle, or is it's just in the one?
Yeah, it's being tested. And as you can imagine, it's interesting to learn about how to optimize the technology, but it's also really interesting to kind of see how this could be game changing for certain brands and may not be the best thing for others.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did we go over time, Izzy? Not surprising with Catherine.
You're right on. No, perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you both so much for your time and the conversation. What's really interesting to hear about is how the Whole Foods customers are actually excited to get back into shopping in store, and what that will look like for them moving forward, as well as just your overall messaging with how new trends are emerging and what that will look like in terms of this new norm we're facing, and yet another transition. So thank you both for your time and the insights.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
So we're super excited for our next speaker of the day. And as a reminder, please be sure to ask any questions you may have in the Q&A so that our speakers can answer them. So up next, we will be joined by Amy Craven, the Director of Brand Strategy and Advertising at American Airlines, as well as Lauren Sessler, the Director of Sales at Ground Truth. So welcome to the stage, Amy and Lauren. Doing a little swapping.
Hey there.
Hello. Hey, Lauren. How's it going? Hello, Amy.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Off. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Oh, how are you? Thanks for having me here. Yes, thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, Lauren, I'll give it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Amy, how's it going? Great
Good,
to see you again. Great to see you. Great to see you. I know we connected last week and had a great chat there, but I'm really excited about our conversation today because, Now that it's summer and it's really vacation season, I feel like everyone can feel that travel is officially back, right? So for Ground Truth, we leverage location data to drive online and offline actions. We've definitely seen an uptick in visitation to places like hotels, airports, rental car places, all of those things. And I was at the Atlanta airport last week and it was absolutely buzzing and very, very exciting to see. So I know we're not at like the pre-pandemic levels yet, but to kick us off, talk to us a little bit about how American Airlines has adapted to consumer needs over the past year.
Yeah. So again, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited. As you say, it is, such an exciting time as travel is rebounding, travel is coming back. Hopefully you guys all have your summer travel vacations booked, because it is so fun to get out there and explore and see the world again. So, but yeah, for American Airlines, yes, as you could imagine, the travel industry was one of the, industries, along with many others, that were greatly impacted. And so, 2020, we absolutely had to look at everything we were doing and shift focus, considerably, based on what we were seeing with demand and what was happening in the world. And so, in 2020 particularly, we had plans, for a big kind of brand message relaunch, and really we had to shelve all that very quickly and really looked at, okay, what does the world need right now? What do our team members need to hear from us right now? And it all, really then drew us back to really honing in on what the customer need was at the time. And so, at the start of the pandemic, it was really building hope, building morale for our team members. They were in the depths of COVID, they were flying, doing amazing things, getting essential services, personnel to where they needed to be, flying equipment and vaccines, even to this day, all around the world. So for us as marketers, it was really important to ensure that we had a brand message that also could tap into what customers needed to hear, as well as our team members. And so we kind of shelved our brand plans and very quickly launched with a new tagline, "You are why we fly," which, again, the sentiment was to just be really customer focused, and focus on what consumers needed to hear. And, that's really shifted over the last few months or even last year, a little bit to reassurance. People have needed to know that we can travel and they can travel and we can take them there safely. So building reassurance, letting them know all of the ways that we're cleaning on board, HEPA filters, touchless kiosks and communications, and more use of the app than we've ever had before. So that's been exciting, through to kind of, where we are a little bit more today with helping our customers navigate travel. It's, it can be complex with various state restrictions or country restrictions. And so we've invested in a lot of tools and technology to help our customers navigate, to understand what the restrictions are, so they can get back out to everything they love about travel.
Awesome. So it seems like there was really kind of like that emotional messaging that you wanted to make sure that the consumer felt, obviously during such an emotional time. And it seemed like that kind of rolled out in phases, right? Which I think is very cohesive to what media and marketing had to do. Like we had to adapt and whatnot. Do you think you're entering kind of into that new phase? And what does that really look like for you guys?
Like a new phase of marketing, or?
Yeah, of marketing, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so we've, spent a lot of time, again, focused, we've shifted everything kind of to digital. And so I wouldn't say, we're in particularly a new phase. We're continuing to build on the things and programs that we established in COVID. A lot of what we're doing right now is efficiency based, flight bookings, trying to encourage those to travel. Making sure that they know, again, of all the ways that we're flying there safely. But yes, I do see that, we are moving towards a little bit more back to the brand message, building that emotional connection. And of course, we want to encourage customers to know some of our premium travel options that we have. We've even launched some new ones, in light of more of a leisure customer flying. So new ways that if they want to buy up into their experience, that they're able to do that as well.
Gotcha. So it seems like kind of your core customer has focused more into the leisure aspect compared to like the business traveler or the international traveler. How has your advertising tactics and channels kind of adapted to that new core customer? I imagine a ton of brands had to really look at who do they need to focus on now. So how has the marketing messages, the different channels, how have those adapted over the past year to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, business travel has declined, although, we're so thankful to see that starting to pick up again. And international travel, particularly the longer haul routes, those are still, slowly launching and reopening as markets are emerging. So yes, our consumer really shifted towards a younger audience, someone who maybe wasn't as familiar with travel or hadn't traveled as frequently as some of, our road warriors, corporate road warriors, out flying every week. So we really, our tactics shifted to one, helping those customers to help them back to navigating travel in really complex time. And from the media standpoint, the channels obviously changed in terms of, we were previously promoting long haul, business class, lie flat seats, the amazing products and experience that you have, on an 8-hour flight to London, and then really looking at shorter haul travel, domestic travel, quicker bookings that people were taking. More people than ever are traveling outdoors, going to national parks. So our network has changed, and we've adapted based off of what we're seeing that consumers are interested in, where they want to go. So yeah, the marketing mix completely had to adapt to who that audience was and where they were shopping and buying for their travel or buying their travel.
Gotcha. I know I, for one, am very ready for business travel to get back into the swing of things. I miss seeing customers and being able to see everyone, but kind of similar last year, I had a few trips planned and then had to cancel them, but I actually went to the national parks in Utah and they were absolutely stunning. Would absolutely recommend anybody to go there who hasn't been there. But I know you oversee domestic and global advertising and strategy as well. Is your messaging for leisure travelers or your new core customer, is it the same domestic as well as internationally, or is it more kind of cohesive across the board, just really highlighting your new offerings and feeling comfortable and things like that? Can you expand at all? Yeah, domestic versus international.
Yeah, no, definitely. We have to adapt the message based on the market needs. So in certain markets where it maybe isn't open yet, we are not necessarily, we have a little bit different message. So in the US, we are focused on welcoming customers back. We have we're calling our Welcome Back campaign, inviting customers back to travel because it is more open. There's a lot more travel within the US as well as Mexico, Caribbean, Latin America. But in other countries, continents, Australia, for instance, it's more of a we're here when you're ready, when the time is right, or a message that's letting them know that we're here when they need to travel. But we know that message may not be received the same way that it would be in the U.S. So we always look to globally adapt our messages to what that consumer is experiencing, but also local cultural nuances as well.
Very cool. And when it comes to like the advertising channels that are most efficient right now, I'm assuming that you've developed over the past year, kind of have seen what works, what hasn't, and led you to where you are today. What kind of advertising channels are you focusing on? And are there any new ones that you're looking to incorporate? Or are you more kind of on like a maintenance mode right now with your messaging and who you're reaching out to and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, as I was kind of saying, we've shifted really into digital so we can be efficient. One thing that's been really important to us that digital enables is the ability to quickly change and adapt. And so as we've had to change and adapt, whether it be the creative message or whether it be a shifting of the media plan, digital has really enabled us to do that. So, there's the typical players, right? Your programmatic, your social, search is always really important. And then of course for us, travel endemic digital sites. So that has played a really big role. as people are really getting back out there again, we may see other channels for us start to continue to be in the mix, like out of home or others. But for now, we are very digital focused because it allows us to be nimble, to make changes, and be very efficient to find the travelers, to find the people who are ready to get back out there.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. I think everybody's had to really be able to be flexible, right, over the past year in terms of communication and vendors and partners. And to piggyback off of that, how can vendors and partners really help you guys in more thoughtful ways, in addition to just executing media and working kind of on a day-to-day basis?
Well, as we've seen, planning ahead is really difficult. We do our best, but anything that a vendor or a partner can do to plan with us in parallel is greatly appreciated. We in order to meet the right mindset with the right time, we can't be booking, media, months and months in advance. We need to be able to be quick, adaptable. We need creative that's dynamic, that can allow us to change messaging on the fly if needed. So for us, it's all about being quick to be able to take action, or being quick to adapt to whatever the world throws at us.
Which it has thrown a lot, but for travel, I think we're here. I think it feels good. It feels normal. Like I mentioned, I was in the airport last week and it was just felt, again, everybody's just buzzing around. It just felt like kind of what it used to be. We went up to New York to visit our team and it was just like, oh my gosh, I know we're not completely out of it, but it felt just like so good to experience that, really. And I think moving forward, just in terms of media and advertising and marketing, it already, went very, very quickly, right? Always a moving fast kind of vertical initiative. And I think there's going to be less of kind of those upfront media strategies, executions, maybe even planning. And it is going to be more on like a quarterly basis, like you mentioned, or even less than that, just depending on kind of where we are and where the market is and what industry it is in. Mm-hmm. Do you think, I know with travel and especially airlines, you have kind of emergencies like weather and technical issues, and it can cause kind of a whole bunch of backups and you have to pivot very, very quickly. Do you think like that helped you guys at all in terms of like the advertising or marketing aspect, or this is just something kind of completely, obviously we haven't experienced it before, where it didn't really parallel there?
Yeah, no, I mean, airline industry is a very dynamic industry. Like you said, weather or world events, or, we're not immune from, the variety of different things that the world can throw at us. And so I would say, we have good processes in place that enable us to make quick changes on the fly, to react quickly when things are needed. I don't think anyone would have expected it quite like this, quite as big as it was. But we were very well, I think, set up to respond quickly in a time of crisis. And so, one thing though that I think that has even kind of come out of this, though, that's enabled us even better for the future is just the amount of focus that it gave our teams. And I mean, we've never had to react quicker, and so it really showed what everybody could do when you're all focused on that one goal, how quickly you can respond, and really work together and collaborate, and really showed the need. Because when you're working in parallel, you have to be talking and communicating simultaneously. So, but it showed us that, even as quick as we thought we could be quicker.
I agree. And I think that's the same for kind of any company, and even, vendors like us as well, is we really had to learn how to communicate effectively internally as well as externally, and see, do we need to pivot somewhere? Do we need to develop something new, a different channel? How can we support our clients when, media is not even running? I think everybody had to be very innovative in terms of internally how they communicate and how they handle things, especially across teams. And I would say, I am a people person, so I love like being in person and seeing people and whatnot, but it did kind of force us to collaborate more, with people you typically didn't see in person or on a day-to-day basis, because everything, was virtual. Everything was Zoom based. So I actually got to know some people a little bit better because of it, but I'm excited to go and see them in person. But I'm sure you work with a ton of internal teams when it comes to media and marketing, as do we. So to expand on that, how has your marketing team adapted to the changes? Is there anything in addition to just being nimble and quick and dynamic? Is there anything else that your team did very, very well and pulled together to make you guys successful throughout the past year?
Yeah, well, as any leader, right, I have an amazing team. So, to talk about a few things that they, did well or strategies. The team was so great in sort of leading collaboration efforts across the company. So was so proud of all the hard work that they did there. We as well kind of adapted some of our creative development processes. So we've had varying models of hybrid, in-house external creative development. And this was a time period where I would say our in-house creative team really shone, because it was such a quick turnaround on some of the deliverables that we needed to communicate, as well as highly complex messages that we were communicating around cleaning and reassurance and policies. And so it was so amazing to see that team, jump quick into action and produce content, teaching themselves new editing techniques or creative development techniques on the fly, and then put out some amazing pieces of work to help inform our customers or educate them on how we were, keeping them safe during their travels. So that hybrid model has continued to kind of stay with us, and we've seen great collaboration then with our external agency partners. But it's so good to have that balance between when you can go in-house for some really quick turn work, as well as an external agency that you can use and rely on for bigger projects, and how those two can work together effectively.
Yeah, I think being able to be flexible there and have kind of all teams firing on all cylinders, if you will, is always great and supportive for what you need to accomplish kind of on a daily basis. And having that agency, as well as I'm sure you still work with vendors and the internal aspect, kind of a full funnel and everybody on board, I'm sure is very, very efficient for a brand like yours to operate at such a high level. But do you have any advice for our audience members on leading during a pandemic, after going into kind of the new normal as we see it?
Yeah, I mean, in our industry, people have just had to be adaptable. There's been so many things thrown at ourselves, my team members, and I commend them for their adaptability, in this process throughout all the varying levels of change that they've experienced. But really, what some of the rock stars that we have on the team have done is they've really just taken on leadership roles. Even if they're not direct leaders of people, they've really rose to the occasion and shown that you can truly lead from every seat and lead within your sphere and take the first step in collaborating with others and sharing. There's no information that is sacred. We should share it. We should democratize it so that others can learn from what we know. So I commend my team's approach and ability to be able to do that in the pandemic, within the company.
I agree. I think it kind of forced you to, like you said, be your own leader, and for everyone who you might not typically hear from, right? It kind of forces you outside of your bubble and to communicate and to be heard. And it's really nice to see some of those people develop into kind of a leadership role, or just kind of a more prominent role within the company.
Yeah.
So I agree there. But given all the changes and everything that's happened, if you have, a crystal ball on you, what do you foresee as the projection for the travel industry in 2021 and going forward? I mean, I'm sure you guys are looking into 2022, 2023 of what that big picture kind of future outlook looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're so excited to see business travel picking back up. I mean, as you kind of hinted, It's so great when you're able to be in person with someone. There's no technical difficulties, right? There's no get off mute.
Is my internet on? Is it working? My dog is barking in the background. Sorry, guys. Yes, all the things.
But a lot of it is about that relationship you're able to forge, or that drink after the meeting that you're able to have with someone to connect with them on a different level. So we are seeing business travel pick up, and we're excited to see that continue. Obviously, international travel, again, a bigger part of our business as well. We're excited to see countries reopening, and we do anticipate consumers are going to be ready. We're seeing, demand, search demand picking up for specific long haul destinations. So we're excited, for our customers to be able to get out there and explore the world. From more of a consumer standpoint, I think trends like flexibility are still going to be very, very important. And I would say it's probably not a trend. It's more of just an inherent consumer need, right? And so, we, continue to have products and services, right, for that customer. If you need more flexibility, there's different fare products that those customers are able to purchase. So we see that as something that is going to kind of continue on, and customers are going to continue to demand and need. And I think, as I was joining, I saw caught in the last part of this, and I definitely, can relate to this sort of hybrid nature, that we'll see both in store and retail, and then likely a hybrid nature as well in travel. And, consumers now have more flexibility in their personal lives probably than they've had, over the last few years. And so it'll be interesting to see as consumers take business trips, how they start to then blur those lines between business and leisure travel, and how they maybe extend their travel for business and turn it into a vacation, or are working more remotely, but experiencing the world while they're doing it. So we look forward to some fun trends like that in consumers.
I can imagine it's going to pick up. I mean, it is picking up, but in terms of, you're right, we have more flexibility. We've kind of proven we could work really from anywhere. And I imagine that people are going to be like, hey, let me go, to Colorado for 3 months, or go to Mexico and then work and then go on a vacation. And I think the travel industry is really only going to go up from here, which I'm excited about. I know you guys kind of have that brand messaging of like, you are why we fly. Do you think kind of that emotional brand messaging, like supportive of a consumer, do you think that's important kind of for all brands moving forward, kind of less about the prosperous side and just more about the consumer? Do you think that'll be important moving forward for brands in order to connect and be successful with their consumers?
Absolutely. I mean, if ultimately, if we're meeting the customer's needs, then, that is the goal, that then the business is thriving because we are taking care of the customer and what they need and want. And, just as every other business is adapting, we're having to adapt our businesses and processes to make sure that we're meeting the needs of a changing customer. So yeah, I mean, our goal is to continue to be customer centric, to continue to learn, to understand, to know our customers, what they want and need in an airline. So definitely see that as a focus that is here to stay.
Awesome. And I think last question, because I do feel like we have a few audience questions. What makes you most excited about working with American Airlines? I know we touched a little bit about the future of, travel and whatnot, but American Airlines specifically, what gets you excited about working there?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I've been with American 10 years now, and what is exciting about it is there's never a dull moment. It is always changing industry. From, I think, back to kind of the various time in my career that I've spent here, and each sort of moment in time has carried with it its own unique challenges, which has challenged me as a marketer, as a leader. And so it keeps it very interesting, but it's also such fun when you can market something, promote something that you also love to do. I'm extremely passionate about travel, and the people here at American are great. So it's a great place to work.
Awesome. That's why I've loved the advertising industry as well. It just changes so quickly. It always keeps you on your toes. Never a dull moment. But let me see. I think we have a few few questions from the audience. Have you shifted your data strategy in the past few months at all?
Yeah, well, I think, we have been looking at, preparing for cookie lists. That's been a huge piece of what we do. So, we're fortunate that we do have, first party data, right? A massive loyalty program, the Advantage program. So for us, we do know our customers, probably more so maybe than some other brands do, just by the nature of how we have data and what we do with it. But that's been a big part of our strategy, is how we're preparing for cookie lists in the ad space, and definitely kind of tapping into our first party data in obviously privacy compliant ways is a great way for us to be able to do that.
Awesome. I'm sure it's great having all that first party data. Are you, Mark, focusing more on kind of your current loyalists with the AA members, or are you more still looking to get new customers and drive new loyalists there?
Absolutely. With the pandemic, we saw a lot of younger travelers flying, those who were not in the loyalty program, because a significant number, I would say, are probably, traveling for work. So it really opened us to a whole new audience that, our goal is to then for everyone to be an Advantage member. We'd love for everyone to be in the program, and it really makes the experience with American better for the customer as well. So encourage anybody who's not a member to join the program. There are lots of ways that we enable consumers to earn miles when they're not flying too. So you can continue to be in the program and build up and save towards your next trip. So for us, it is loyalty and encouraging those to join the loyalty program or to sign up with one of our great co-brand credit card partners is always part of our strategies.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely rack up on those points. They will come in handy later when you're booking those trips.
Yep.
How are you determining where to spend time on emerging technologies?
Was there any specific, I'm looking in that question, like any specific technologies or?
Just as emerging technologies. So I don't know if there's any, I know we're spending a lot on digital, or you guys are spending a lot on digital focus there. Is there any, I'm trying to think, I don't know, in gaming, or is there any different sort of like out of home, or just kind of any different digital aspect that you guys are probably looking into or are maybe looking into?
Yeah, I mean, right now, we've been a little bit in efficiency mode. So we're relying on kind of partners and technologies that have been tried and true. We are expanding on some technology partnerships that we have in the ad tech space and online space with our partners, Everymundo. They are a dynamic page provider. So they help us with technology that helps us to pull in dynamic feeds and create new landing pages on the fly and build dynamic content. So we certainly are focused, at least in the marketing space, on developing and investing in technologies that are going to help us to be faster, quicker, more flexible, more efficient. Because that's, as we said, that's the name of the game these days.
Yeah. Do you find more people booking in app or on your website? Like which one is more efficient for you guys?
Yeah, I think, people still, use their desktop, I think, to get out and, do those purchases on their computer. But the app, continues to be a really efficient way to book a flight. But desktop still remains an important part of our strategy.
Awesome. Let's see what next. What are some of the biggest challenges and enablers in realizing the vision of your strategy, your marketing strategies? So what do you come across that kind of makes you scratch your head and what are we going to do about this?
Yes. So challenges, absolutely. I mean, speed to market is always a challenge. We want to go plan ahead. We want to be planning, years. I think that's what, again, the last session was saying they get to plan a year in advance, which that would be amazing. crazy. While the hard products, so I will say, we are investing in aircraft that are bought years ahead, infrastructure within the airports, lounges, those things are all invested many years in advance. On the marketing side, then we are hopefully trying to get back to longer lead times, longer planning times. But speaking to that barrier, it is a challenge in our industry as a marketer when you invest so far ahead in some of the hard products, the infrastructure, or you're constrained by maybe different things, the government, or are other sort of regulations you have in place. That is definitely a big piece of what we have to take into consideration as we're building our plans, building our strategies, and that some of those things are sort of built or invested in, many years ahead of that. So yeah, all about, trying to sync up those planning times and balance short-term needs, right, and long-term strategies.
Doing it all. You're going to just do it all. Yeah. In terms of a few other media channels, what role do you see advanced technology like AI playing in your future strategies? Is that something that you guys, an idea you're toying with or have already implemented it? Thoughts on AI?
Yeah, I mean, in sort of the technology space as a whole, as the airline, I don't know if it's technically considered AI, but we definitely are using things like biometric boarding. So, there's more and more technologies we're investing in to make the travel experience easier, smoother, more seamless. So, now if you're flying internationally, you'll have a biometric screen that you come up and it'll look over your face. So then you can board and you don't have to mess with your passports and scanning passports when you're boarding your plane. So just lots of technology like that helps to improve the efficiency of the process. Yeah.
Perfect. And then let's see. I know we touched a little bit on loyalty data. So how do you guys leverage loyalty data and insight to better meet customer expectations and needs and their experiences with American Airlines?
Absolutely, yeah. So anytime we're building communications campaigns, we're really looking at who is this audience? How can we build communications that are most relevant to them? We recently launched an email campaign where it's sort of using similar technology that would be behind like a Netflix, where it's able to recommend to our customers, you've watched this, so therefore you might like this. So you've traveled here, so therefore you might like to travel here. So using technology and algorithms to help customers and help offer them new destinations and places that they might want to travel to based on their previous travel preferences. So that's just kind of one way that we use technology to hopefully suggest destinations or travel options that they might find interesting. I personally love it when Netflix or Nordstrom is telling me what I should buy next. So,
yes.
So
make it easy. Tell me where I need to spend my money.
Yep. So hopefully customers, find that we're using your data again in a privacy compliant way that is, making your experience better. The goal is to know the customer, to have more personalized content. And so, we hope to just offer more experiences and communications that really do lean into that.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of that in different verticals and different advertising channels, that the personalization aspect is too detailed sometimes, but also really cool, right? Like you're telling me kind of exactly what I should buy or might like to encourage, a purchase. I know a lot of kind of airlines have struggled over the past year, as have any industry and brand. What do you think? Do you think that personalization aspect of it is going to set one airline apart from the other? Like, what do you think are going to be the biggest things for one or the other, or kind of all of them, to be successful moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important for an airline to know their customer, and that will continue to set them apart. So, I can't speak to exactly what some of our competitors may have or may be doing in that space, but our goal is to continue to just get better at leveraging that data to know the customer, to have a more personalized interaction, to offer them products and services that they would be interested in buying. So yeah, it of course will continue to be a differentiator if companies or airlines like ourselves can continue to use that data more effectively.
Awesome. And then in addition to some of the other channels that we've talked about, do you guys use influencer marketing or podcasts, lifestyle marketing, any areas like that in the marketing mix?
Yeah, we're excited after kind of pausing some work around influencers, we've launched our influencer program again. So we've got a good bunch of kind of micro influencers that are telling the world about their journeys traveling abroad. And for us, it's about authentic, relevant storytelling. And influencers, do a great job of that and tapping into, their audiences that, are listening to them. So for us, we're excited that that's now a piece, that we have back in our marketing mix.
Awesome. And then I think we have time for one more question. This is a good one. As leaders, you are always developing your abilities. What are you looking to improve on in the back half of 2021? What skills would you like your marketing team to develop and focus on?
Ooh. That's a good one. Well, okay, looking at it kind of twofold. My goal as a leader for the back half of the year is to continue to focus on prioritization. As things start to rebound, as we start to get back to, old ways, like my goal is to really make sure to keep my team focused and prioritized on what are the most important things, because we are a smaller team, kind of coming out of this, and so it's important that I keep them focused on the right things so that they can have that balance in their lives. And so for then on the flip side of it, my hope for them is that they continue, to just be smarter, faster about the way they're doing things, using data, efficiency, all of those great things that they did so well in the pandemic. So I see Izzy's here to pull me out, right?
You got it. Any last minute words or?
I think I'm good. I think that was great. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for all your thoughtful questions.
Yes, great questions. We had a lot of good ones.
Thank you both so much. And it's really exciting to hear about how American Airlines is engaging, your consumers, especially transitioning more to digital first. And just your ability to quickly pivot your marketing strategies last year. I'm a loyal American Airlines flyer since before I could even, remember. So I'm personally excited to get back to it and pick up where we all left off. So thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
See ya.
Bye, Izzy.
Bye. So for our next fireside chat of the day, we are going to be joined by Ashley Travis, the Director of Digital Strategy at KFC Global, as well as Catherine Knockreiner, the Director of Sales West at Ground Truth. So welcome to the stage, Ashley and Catherine. Give them a second. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Hey, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Awesome. Well, I'll let you guys take it from here.
Definitely. So I had the pleasure of connecting with Ashley earlier last week and sort of had some really fascinating insights that I am excited to share with you all. As you know from the prior panelists, Ground Truth is the leading location and ad tech company trying to find the right consumers and the right audiences. And 2020 and 2021 have been a challenge for us with the pandemic. And what I thought was really interesting in my conversation with Ashley was some of the pivots that she has been able to make with her brand and how it really varies globally. So before I go into some of my questions, I thought I'd back up a little bit and ask what you actually do, Ashley, as a director of digital strategy at KFC and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. So my role is probably unique compared to a lot of folks that you'll be hearing from over the course of the summit. It really is an amalgamation of all of my past experience. So I have experience working at Starbucks headquarters, so retail very similar, and working on Starbucks Rewards loyalty. I have experience working at Amazon and e-commerce optimization, and so really this role kind of brings it all together. So KFC is the second largest QSR in the world. We're in over 145 countries and have over 25,000 restaurants. The vast majority of our sales are outside of the US. So here in Plano, Texas, we have a global center of excellence, where it's our job to really set the growth strategy and prioritization of how we're going to grow over the next several years, and take best practices and learnings from markets that are doing things well, share those learnings across the other markets to help enable speed to market and different capabilities. So I oversee and find global partners that will help us grow more quickly. I work with the markets on capabilities such as e-commerce launch, so launching web and app solutions, and then the optimization of those solutions. We call it access everywhere, every way. So any sort of digital ordering capabilities, CRM, loyalty, performance marketing, and as well as developing new capabilities. So identifying where our knowledge gaps might be in these areas, and helping our markets develop new digital marketing capabilities.
That sounds like a lot of hats you're wearing.
It is, but I enjoy every single one of them, and I have trouble letting go. So I just work with really, really great people that help me make me look smarter than I am.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm sure that's not even true. But here is my question for you, because you are doing a lot of different things, all the way from, the access everywhere, anytime, to e-commerce. When you are at the global level that you are, is it different, obviously, in all of these different markets, right? And then how have you been able to adapt to this, giving customers control over when, how, where they feel safe accessing during the pandemic?
Yeah, I would say every market is different. And that's why KFC operates in a very decentralized way compared to a lot of QSRs. Our 145 countries are divided up into 18 major business units. And those business units have autonomy to make decisions and run their business the way that they think is going to be most beneficial to them. And so it's my job just to help them and to provide them with information and capabilities to enable them to be better, work faster, work stronger. And so it's been really interesting, because when the pandemic happened, so we had some markets that had e-commerce already, and you saw that they didn't skip a beat when everything started to shut down. And then we had some markets that hadn't launched anything. And so for them, it was, how do I get an app? How do I get digital ordering as soon as possible? So the focus was very broad. And then we also found that just the way that the pandemic, the way that different governments handled the pandemic also changed the way we had to react and adapt, because some went into a complete lockdown. QSRs weren't even open, and other markets like ours still at least allowed for drive-through or for delivery during certain points in time, and other countries didn't allow for that. So yeah, it was quite interesting, but it was a really great adventure that just continues to grow.
Oh, it just keeps continuing. It's true.
Yeah.
So you were already a decentralized model per se, right? So that in some ways, I feel like that may have been an advantage for KFC, to people to adapt real time to their particular countries or rules, if you will. It sounds like.
Absolutely, definitely.
That's great to hear. And so now that you say the access everywhere and every way, that sounds like a really big push towards giving customers what they want when they want. And you were already heading that way anyway, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. That's really great. And so I have to bring it back to this whole consumer comeback since it's the theme of this. How have you adjusted your messaging in the pandemic? Like, how has what you were originally intending to do changed? And of course, once again, that's probably a very loaded question since you do have all these different, you're global. So I'm sure that's changed, but how have you been able to either shift sort of what you were going to do or inform people about new offerings in this pandemic?
Well, I would say while we operate decentralized and each of the markets kind of are able to react in the way that it makes sense for them, the collaboration at our organization has never been stronger. And I mean, we were meeting regularly across different markets to understand and learn and adopt from one another. And we actually found a lot of similarities in what our messaging needed to be. And so we essentially, in almost every single market, we just stopped doing LTOs last year. We said, you know what, with everything changing so rapidly, it's better for our customers to not throw some new information at them. It's better for our supply chain. It's better to ensure that we're just producing our core products and we're doing them extremely well to provide customers with the great fried chicken that's going to make them feel and give them this like home treat feeling during this time. So that's one thing that was very similar. And then we tested some things in different markets that just continue to be adopted across the world by doing more with what we have rather than launching a bunch of new products. How do we adapt the core products we have to this changing environment and situation? So in the US, you probably, I think most of the attendees are in the US, you probably saw the $30 fill up. So the $20 fill up is something that the team has regularly, and that's a bucket of fried chicken with sides. And they knew that if customers were, having to pay these delivery fees in order to get food delivered to them, let's make sure that they're getting more for that fee that they have to incur. So they did the $30 fill up of adding, tenders to it. And so it's a meal for tonight and then a meal for tomorrow so that you're, getting more for what you're planning. We had markets that also adopted a similar approach of buying for multiple occasions in one purchase and would leverage social media to get creative with how you can use your leftovers and rework them into additional meals. So you can kind of stretch your dollar and you can stretch your meals further. And then I think what ultimately the big culmination of how we came together as a brand to change our messaging was really the removal of our tagline. No tagline is more inappropriate during a pandemic than finger licking good.
You stole my thunder on my next question because I was like, wow, yeah.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
like the CDC, everyone's telling you, don't put your fingers to your face. And we're saying, lick your fingers. Yeah. So we had our first ever global campaign and said, you know what? We're killing the tagline. And we pixelated out the finger licking part. And then we just said, you know what? We're just pausing it for now. And then we had our customers kind of fill in the blank. So that was really fun. And especially looking across different countries, across different languages, how customers were filling in the blank. And we've got some really great ideas and submissions and engagement with our fans. And then we entered a phase toward the end of the year or beginning of this year where we just stole taglines from other brands.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's like guerrilla marketing on a global scale, of course, but it's so great.
It's still not okay to use our tagline. So Red Bull, we're just going to steal yours for now and say KFC, it gives you wings, which is a little, play on words because different kinds of wings.
So brilliant.
It was really fun. I take absolutely no credit for this campaign. It was my colleagues, Amy Durini and Tori Carter. They really led the charge at our global headquarters, but just a great example of how our markets kind of came together during this time to collaborate.
Well, and I think it goes back to your earlier point that Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, is such a comfort food. And to try to make some sort of joy for people in a time where a lot of things were uncertain, and to have this constant great food available and giving people value at this time is just such a brilliant brand play across the globe. And in the US in particular with the delivery too, that they're getting more for that. I love that. Super smart. So tagline, come in, are we still playing with it? Are we going to come back with finger licking good? What are the thoughts on that?
Yeah, what you'll see is that different markets have already brought it back because everyone now is in different stages. I mean, it made sense for us at the time because we were all, as a world, we were all in this together, but some markets have already started to kind of come back and open up. And so they're starting to bring the tagline back. But other markets, like our friends in India, are still in really dire situation right now. So we're really letting them, each market is kind of choosing when it's appropriate for them.
That makes complete sense. And let's go to vendors and partners really quick. We had touched base on this, and I think something that you brought up, which I found really interesting, is that you're going a million miles a minute and you are planning so many different executions and strategies, and you have so many needs for your business. And one of the things that I wanted to ask is how vendors and partners can work with you in smarter and more thoughtful ways and adapt to your needs, other than just media, right? Like, how else can we help work with you?
I think first and foremost, we look for partners that are really going to be thought leaders with us, that are going to help us to develop customer-centric solutions, as opposed to just trying to sell us their product. Really understanding, hey, what are our business challenges as a brand, as a company, and how can they help us solve those business challenges, not just now, but in the future, and not just trying to sell us a product or service now, but help demonstrate the way that we can grow and adapt with it. So I think thought leadership is definitely one. Another one is partners that really lean into their strengths. So if a company is trying to tell me that they are an all-in-one solution and that they can do everything, it makes me hesitate because not everyone is good at everything. I know I certainly am not. And so it's really important. It's like, hey, just lean into, we had a particular potential partner that I talked to last week, and I asked, well, do you do this? And he goes, no. Honestly, and I wouldn't recommend you use us for that. It's important that you diversify. And I was like, thank you. That's so transparent and honest. He said, we do this. We're really, really good at this, and we're not going to pretend to be something that we're not. That I think is extremely important. And especially as we're moving to an technology architecture and a MarTech architecture of a microservices approach, where we want to find the best of the best at different solutions and bring them together for an overall customer experience, that becomes really important.
I think that's so smart. And, to elaborate a little bit further on that, it's that not everybody can be an expert at everything. Like, I know what Ground Truth is really good at, but if you asked me to do something else, I would have to be honest with you and say, no, that's not our strong suit, because I think at the end of the day, it's okay to have multiple partners, to your point.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody has to do everything really well, and be wary of people that say they can do everything well, because it might not be the solution that you need. And that's refreshing to hear too. And another thing that you had brought up too is leaning into your strengths, right? So it's like people that can do one thing really, really well, that can be that partner for that. And then you have somebody else measure it. So for instance, we're really good at giving you people and driving foot traffic to KFC. If you want somebody else to measure it, we suggest that, because we don't grade our own homework. So if you need that third-party verification, go with somebody else, which that's just exactly what you're saying. Another thing you had mentioned to me, since you do cover so many countries and you are on global, that partners that have global scale are important to you as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's very important. It's really hard for me to spend a majority of my time, or for us to invest in a partner that can only be a solution for one market. That doesn't mean we don't partner with them, but that's when I say, hey, go and talk to so-and-so in that particular market, find out if you can help them. But I focus my focus is the whole world. So I'm looking for partners that are going to help enable us to become a stronger organization on a global scale. We do have partners that, are only solutions for one or two markets. And I'm totally fine with that. And I partner with them and I talk to them regularly to say, hey, how can I find someone like you in the Middle East? How can I find someone like you in the Asia Pacific market? Like, you are a great partner to us, but since you can't scale, can you help me track down someone that can help us scale? And so that goes back to that thought leadership I was talking about of helping us outside of the particular product or service you're trying to sell.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And if you can find somebody that can recommend somebody great, that's helping you get further in your job. So I get that. Another question that we are really fascinated by is all the changes and shifts that have happened this past year and a half, year and 3 months. What are your predictions for the industry in 2021? Like, do you have what you think you're going to see more of coming out of this?
Yeah, I think there's a few, and I'll look at 2021 and beyond. I think in 2021, we're going to continue to see that convenience is king. I think customers have gotten used to digital ordering. They've gotten used to diverse ways of ordering and access brands. They have more choices than ever before for any type of occasion that they're looking for. And I think we're going to continue to see that even increase. We're going to see more and more aggregator solutions coming out, more and more of these like combining of ordering experiences and different ways to pick up and access food. So I think it's going to be similar to the streaming industry, that we're seeing, where we're going to have a lot. I think we're in parallel paths with the streaming industry, where we're getting a lot of diversification, and then there's going to be a tipping point, and it's going to kind of maybe go down to just a few that are going to survive. So it's going to be a very interesting space to watch. Mm-hmm. I also think that we're going to see technology innovation that's going to then capture that change and that evolving customer behavior. So I was talking to a partner of ours, Yext, recently, where they were talking about the change that they're predicting in search and how which I thought was fascinating, of how it's going to become more conversational. So we've piloted conversational commerce as an organization, really leaning into technology and enhancements that are coming in the space. And then the prediction that that's how search is going to be too, not just based on keywords, but answering your question with a question to kind of help you whittle down your solutions even further. So I think that's going to continue to evolve and happen very quickly. And then finally, I think we're going to continue to see that brands that do more and provide more are going to rise above the top. Brands that do more on a social, for social good. Brands that put people first, put their own people first, and lean into helping people just become better versions of themselves. And then, brands that are looking to provide more to customers than just the initial product or service they're trying to sell, that are helping create really great content, or, in some terms that might be some sort of loyalty schema, and others it might just be becoming content creators. So I think we're going to continue to see brands reach beyond their initial scope.
Absolutely. So it becomes less and less about transactional and more about the value to the end consumer. Yeah. I love that. Absolutely. I love the idea that you are giving tips and tricks with leftovers and what to do with them too. I think that's such a nice value to people. I love that. And I think one of the other things that we talked about is just the convenience of everything, right? It's really about what makes this user experience not only at ease, but it's really not giving them only the value, but it's like it's just a very easy choice for them. And there's going to be more and more diversification on what that looks like to the end user. I love that. And back to something you said earlier, which is really interesting, because I think we've seen this global shift in 2020 and 2021 about doing well, doing more social good for the greater good. Like it's not enough for a company to provide just a service. It really matters what they stand for. Could you talk a little bit about Yum as a global organization and how they've continued to invest in their employees, and maybe some of the best practices that have been developed in this pandemic that may keep going forward?
Well, I think one of the things that's made us very successful during this time is it's our culture, and how we treat each other, and how the company just invests in its people. So, we're grounded in being a heart-led high performance culture. From a high performance perspective, we want to be the best. We want to do the best, and we are continuously pushing for more. And we want to make sure that we can have an impact and grow the business. And we have high performers that are given the autonomy to do just that. But a lot of companies talk about how they're a people first organization. And I've worked at some really big companies, and I have never experienced a company that walks the walk the way that Yum does, and especially KFC. We really see each person as an individual, and so we want everyone to bring their unique and authentic self to the table. And we think that's how we're going to have a diverse ideas and a diverse approach to growing the business. And the company really put that into action during a time when most people were just stressed. We were too. We were working longer hours. Yeah. 6 a.m. calls, 10 p.m. calls. But we have a very flexible work culture and environment, and that's here to stay for us for the future. The company gave us extra mental health days to make sure that we were doing okay. Constant reward and recognition for the work that we were putting in. I mean, my family would talk all the time. I would get another package on the front door, and they're like, "What are you getting now?" I'm like, "Oh, the CFO sent me Tips Treats to thank me for doing, start helping out with this presentation," or, "Oh, I got this T-shirt from this country for, helping out on this project." And just having fun in what we do and recognizing and rewarding each other. You would think that would become more challenging when we're in this remote working environment.
Right.
But it really was just made stronger. We just had to adapt into new ways of recognizing and rewarding one another. And it was so amazing to be a part of that.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you guys are definitely stakeholders, but you go with your entrepreneurial spirit and you're rewarded to do that. And people recognize that. I love that. So some of the things that you think out of this pandemic that may be here to stay with Yum Brands and maybe KFC in particular, give me some examples of best practices that your company will continue on doing.
Definitely having this kind of flexible working environment. We've had some people that, some people want to go back to the office, some people want to stay working remotely. And we're going to provide the flexibility for everyone to feel comfortable doing what's important to them. I think so that's here to stay. We've attracting talent and being flexible with where they live, and not if they want to relocate. Great. Yes, we'll pay for you to relocate. That's fine. Come on down to Dallas. It's a great place to live. But if you don't want to relocate, we just hired a couple people that live in LA, and they want to stay in LA. That's fine. Stay in LA, and we can remote in. We have in my team, we have someone in Moscow, 2 people in Australia, 1 person in LA, and then 4 of us here in Dallas. We're just having someone join next week from Chicago. So just having that flexibility to do what's best for you on a personal level is definitely here to stay.
That's great. And I think it's game changing. And I think the best companies that are going to recruit the best talent, like you just laid out, are the people that are going to be flexible and realize that everybody has different needs, and you don't have to necessarily sit physically together to get it done. Yep. So that's a great practice. I think you had mentioned some other things that Yum instituted, like mental health days and a reward and recognition culture. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's, the reward and recognition is just how our culture has always been. We each kind of create our own personal awards. Mine, you might be able to see it behind me here, is the Wonder Woman Award. On the top. So I have a personal award that I give out for women specifically in the technology space that are making a difference and doing great work. Women are significantly underrepresented in that space, and our company and me personally are looking for diverse talent and female talent that we can kind of infuse in technology, and I make it a point to recognize those individuals. And so we each have like our own personal award that means something to us, that we create and we give and we recognize each other, and everyone has the ability to do that.
I love that. And that's the name of the game, is keeping everybody happy and injecting fun in what you do. So that was one of the things you said too. You said that the team is really fun because everybody recognizes how hard everybody's working.
Exactly.
Here's our other question. So with the rise in digital ordering, which, as you had mentioned, it's just the trajectory keeps going, right? How has organizational changes and what you're looking to invest in, like infrastructures or departments going forward, and some of the learnings that were happening in COVID, and maybe we're naturally happening that way, but some of the things that you might be looking to invest in?
So one of the things that we've been investing in over the past year that we're going to continue to do so is testing and rolling out agile ways of working. So working in an agile approach is really common in the technology industry. A lot of developments and engineering teams work in agile, but it's just now becoming more common on the marketing side. So if you look at some of the top Fortune 50 companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Nike, Facebook, they operate in this way, but it's very new for QSR to operate in this way. And that is with a fail forward mentality, kind of this ability to just test and learn and launch campaigns in an iterative way, and adapt to changing customer behavior, as opposed to spending 9 months to plan something and then launching it. And we've tested that in over 6 markets, and with amazing results, that contributing to at least 1 point of same-store sales growth in each of those markets, and in some cases more. And we've been testing across e-commerce optimization, CRM, paid media, aggregator marketing. And we have a backlog of over 600 successful tests that any of our markets can just pull from and start to test and scale out in their markets. And so that ability to work in a really fast, efficient way and see the return on that investment so quickly is something that we're leaning into, and going to continue to explore and roll out further.
Oh my gosh. And that's really groundbreaking in QSR, to your point.
Yeah.
You see this in a lot of the tech companies, right? And you hear about it at Facebook and Oracle, if you will, but this is really exciting that you're implementing the best of for KFC. I love that. Also with attracting, so you've got to get top talent too. So attracting these people, are there different ways that you're looking at getting this top talent? You had already mentioned that you are agnostic to where people live now, which I think is a huge advantage for your company, right? What are some other ways that you're attracting tech and digital talent?
I think, in addition to just kind of putting together just a really great package, right, that will attract people to the company, and in addition to all of the great culture that we have that you can't find at a lot of other tech companies, we are really, the opportunity with our company, because we're so new in the digital space in our industry, is to really be able to make a difference and build something from the ground up and put your stamp on it. And we find that that's really attractive to a lot of really great talent. People who have this experience already, they want to make a difference, and they want to be able to deliver an impact, and to have the autonomy to do that, and that growth trajectory that can come from that, of building something from the ground up and putting your stamp on it, and there's so much trajectory and room for growth, that it's just really attractive to people to want to kind of be on the ground floor and have that entrepreneurial spirit about it.
For sure. And it sounds like that is overall a Yum thing as well. So, and then KFC in particular. So that's wonderful to hear. So I think without further ado, I'm going to open up some questions. I've gotten a few good ones, if that's okay with you, Ashley. Here's a good one. What do you see as the biggest future challenge to retail and e-commerce and the biggest opportunity?
Definitely the biggest challenge is going to be the competition, because all of these digital channels have opened up. It creates more competition than ever before. And I think I alluded to this earlier, but if you just imagine, if you were commuting home from work and you were trying to decide what to pick up from dinner, originally your brain would have gone to, okay, what's on my route home that I can just pop in and pick up, or what's a drive-through, because I don't have time to just sit there and wait. Now all of a sudden I can have anything delivered. It doesn't matter where the location is located. It doesn't matter if I'm ordering from what's traditionally a dine-in restaurant versus quick service, because I can order it ahead and then just hop in and pick it up. And so now what used to be, what is drive-through on my way home, your options just went to like exponentially larger.
Very true.
And so I think that's going to become our biggest challenge, is how do we be distinctive and how do we stand out, and with more competition facing us than ever before. And from an opportunity perspective, though, that's also the opportunity, right? You have access to more customers than you ever had before, because your customer pool used to only be those people that were nearby, that were looking for something quick.
Right.
And now you're like, well, you don't have to be nearby, or we don't have to be on your way home because we can come to you.
Right.
So
it's being smart about your messaging and getting in front of that consumer in a non-linear way that we used to do. That's so true. There's other phenomenon that we just found out, because I'm the ghost kitchen too. There's this whole other, QSR, if you will, that's opened up, and it's really fascinating too. Like, who knew that this outlier was going to come in with no overhead that they have to pay, right? Like,
I mean, ghost kitchens are great unless you have a secret recipe, and unless you're very particular about how your chicken is made.
Right. Well, that's a whole other conversation. It took me 2 hours to realize that Mr. Beast Burger wasn't a physical location. I was like, oh, it's a whole new way of doing things. One of the other questions that was asked, which I think is great, how is the digital transformation of marketing and media industries impact brand marketing? That's an interesting question.
It's a really interesting question. It's something that we're talking about every day, and how we create the right balance. So what percentage of our media dollars needs to go to brand and awareness driving campaigns versus what percentage of our dollars is going to performance driven campaigns?
Right.
And we're actually testing this right now in several markets. And we did a test in Thailand where we had in Thailand, we had 90% of their media was for awareness driving performance and 10% for conversion as the KPI. We just switched it to 80-20, 80 awareness driving, 20% conversion as the KPI. And we saw a 20% lift in our conversion rate in our digital transactions. And so we're starting to kind of make these micro changes in different markets of looking at even of that. And now we also have to look at, okay, what kind of we have still have to make sure that our share of voice is greater than our share of market, that we're still staying top of mind. So we don't want to take that one case example and then flip it on the opposite, right? 90% towards conversion. We have to find the right balance, but it's a really fantastic question and something that we have to continue to explore.
It is. And I honestly, like, as somebody who's worn the hat on the upper funnel, high brand awareness stuff, and to the tactical lower, like, accountable media, I think you need both. And it's like the every day we try to figure out what that balance is. So that's a great question. Another great one we have is, how are we balancing the need to engage the masses while also leveraging data for more precision targeting? That's exactly the same question almost. But
It's like,
how can I answer this one differently?
You're off the hook because I think you did a great job. This is a good one. Do you have a loyalty program? If so, how does it align with your brand values? And how does your brand secure an edge in such a competitive industry? I think you did that pretty well too.
Really good question, and something that I'm actively working on. We have loyalty programs in a couple different markets, obviously not the US. And having worked in loyalty for over a decade of my career.
Okay.
The challenge is in both, with Starbucks Rewards in the, unpaid space and Prime in the subscription-based space. The problem with loyalty and QSR is that it's not very distinctive and not very diversified. It's largely the same earn and burn wherever you go. And so I think, to the latter part of the question, like it's really hard to stand out right now. And so unless my opinion is that unless we're going to do it in a distinctive way and stand out, then there's no point in doing it. But then again, on the flip side, it's almost table stakes these days. So that's something that we're actively exploring and looking into and testing. And who knows, hopefully you'll see something really great come out of all of this work that we're putting into it now.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a great question. We've got a few more here. What technology power and inform your marketing and advertising? What do you rely on? What technologies? And what piece is still missing from the puzzle?
So we have, great question. We have, we've been spending a lot of time and effort to try and get our MarTech capabilities and have commonality across our different markets. We have a really great CRM partner and relationship in Braze. We've rolled them out to 12 additional countries over the past 6 months, I think, like really quickly. And so we have a really great CDP relationship with Imparticle that we're rolling out. We have deep linking capabilities. We have, we're working with some partners on data lakes.
Okay.
We have an e-commerce backend platform, a web and app solution. So I think, what's missing right now is from an offer wallet standpoint. So as we kind of go into like loyalty, how do we try to test, really easily kind of test different like offers and rewards? And how do we evolve that as our data capabilities mature? Location services technology, particularly ones that are scalable globally, is something that's that we're still exploring. And then just kind of overall loyalty product as we go through the work that I mentioned earlier of defining what it is we need to do, then we need to look at how do we build or buy that solution and launch it in the future.
That's excellent. Okay, that's great. And then I think I have time for one final one. How are you leaning into the consumer experience and leveraging their generated content?
I think that really varies by market. So one of the benefits of us being so decentralized, as I mentioned earlier, is that each market can bring the brand to life in a culturally relevant way that makes sense for them.
Absolutely.
And so while we have our iconic brand assets in the bucket and the red and white stripes and the kernel and finger licking good, that's the same everywhere. We have markets that we had a really great campaign, a TikTok campaign in Germany that garnered 1.8 billion views through user generated content. And so we just kind of have these pockets of really great fan bases. Some in Australia are more sports oriented. In South Africa, we really have great music relationships with different artists. And so the brand really kind of comes to life culturally different in different areas and of the world. And we see that through all of the great content that our users are generating.
That's so great. And you tap into what works for that market in particular. I love that. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great chat, Ashley. I've learned so much about your business, and thank you so much for taking.
I hope I could be of help. Feel free to reach out if you have any further questions.
Sure. Thank you both so much for the time and just the insightful conversation. It's really interesting to hear about how, KFC's brand messaging varies around the world depending on, what their current situation may be, but also just the focus you put on your employees and making sure that their hard work is recognized, which I feel like now and over the past year has been more important than ever. So we really appreciate it and look forward to having you both back on our stage.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Catherine.
Bye.
So for our last fireside chat of the day, I am thrilled to be joined by Jamie Jansky-Beck, the head of grocery and emerging channels of shopper marketing at Unilever, as well as Will Marenberg, the senior account executive of CPG partnerships at Ground Truth. Welcome, Jamie and Will.
Hello.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We've got Will joining us now.
Hey, how are you?
Go. Awesome. Well, welcome both. And I'll let you take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Jamie, it's great to chat with you again. Jamie and I, we talked it a little bit last week, had a great conversation. But before we kind of jump into everything that we're going to get into, wanted to at least give you a little bit of time to tell everybody who's joining us, kind of what you're doing for Unilever and what your responsibilities are.
Absolutely. Yes. So I lead shopper and omni marketing for Unilever across grocery and emerging channels. So focusing on Unilever's whole portfolio of brands from Dove to Suave, Hellmann's, Breyers, Ben & Jerry's. My focus is probably a little different than some of the panelists. I'll focus more on lower funnel conversion and retailer partnerships and less of the kind of national brand marketing strategy.
Got it. And that makes sense. So you wear a lot of hats, I'd say, across all the different brands and the many different retailers. I'm especially curious because I know that in the CPG industry, the reaction to everything that happened last year was a little bit different than some of the other industries. So to kick things off, would love to hear, kind of how your business has adapted to kind of changing consumer needs and really how those changes impacted your plans for this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially when the pandemic hit and all the lockdowns started, the first thing we really had to do was shift more of our plans from in-store to digital and e-commerce, where we were seeing the growth. Additionally, given the state that the country was in and shoppers, we really wanted to do something to help. So we quickly launched our United for America campaign and Unilever's annual day of service in May of last year, where we really partnered with our retailers to help frontline workers and those affected with COVID or by COVID through partnerships with NGOs like Feeding America, Direct Relief, Luminary, Boys and Girls Club. So that initiative launched kind of right after the pandemic, and that annual day of service is something that we're going to continue kind of to give back and do that annually. And then as we dug into kind of the shopper behavior, we found that as shoppers were kind of looking to limit where they went to buy their needs and limit the physical stores that they went into, we found that the grocery channel was acquiring a lot of new shoppers that we started to call their new friends. And these new friends were buying categories in grocery that they typically hadn't bought on their food trips before, like beauty and personal care. So as we look to say, how can we keep these shoppers engaged and how can we keep them buying Unilever products in grocery, we developed a grocery channel loyalty program with our partners at Fetch Rewards. And really by leveraging the scale of Unilever's products that span from food to ice cream to beauty and personal care products, we were able to offer shoppers a $10 gift card for every $30 of qualifying purchases that they made and uploaded their receipts to Fetch Rewards at our participating grocery stores. And in the back half of last year, we gave shoppers the opportunity to earn $50 in gift cards. And not only were we able to kind of target the shoppers that were already on the Fetch Rewards app, but we were able to partner with retailers, both small and large, to really drive increased baskets, more trips, and market share for both Unilever and our grocery retailers.
That's awesome. I mean, I think, you know, being flexible with the way you're planning is so huge now. That you mentioned, so, you know, using Fetch Rewards. I know Unilever is a huge company. What kinds of things, you know, are you doing to bring people into the Unilever family at grocery? And does that change across different retailers?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So one of the things is partnering with our partners like Fetch, that where we can target what people are buying and kind of bring them into Unilever and drive new users. The other thing is really partnering with our retailers themselves. So during the pandemic, a lot of retailers, and even leading up to it, a lot of retailers have been able to really truly figure out how to harness their 1P data and develop retail media networks and solutions for us to tap into. So we've been partnering with our retailers across the board to really identify where can we drive those incremental purchases and where can we target new shoppers who may be new to the category or new to Unilever and get them to buy more at our retail partners. In addition, really truly leveraging our 1P data to help drive growth for our retail partners as well.
Yeah, and I think especially that you bring up a good point, right? A lot of different retailers are probably at different stages of creating their own retail networks. So I think the Unilever first party data is definitely a huge piece of that. Messaging, right? So creative and I guess the way people are shopping both in store or for in store. How have you adjusted that through the pandemic to either shift your core focus or maybe even shed light on new products?
Yeah. So one of the things we found quickly is shoppers weren't looking for the latest hairstyles and the messaging the beauty messaging that we had leaned on before. So we really wanted to, first of all, make sure that we were giving them relevant solutions that made sense with how they were living their lives. We also wanted to make sure that we were very sensitive to the state that the shopper was in and the difficulties that our shoppers were experiencing during this time. So some of the key kind of themes and trends that emerged that we kind of shifted our focus to were that one-stop shopping, as we knew that shoppers were looking to get in and out of stores quickly. How could we make it easy for them? Value, we knew that there were a lot of cash-strapped shoppers that were looking to save money. So how could we deliver on that value proposition for them? Hygiene was extremely important as we had the fears of COVID and hand washing. We had a lot of messages out there that if you can't get hand sanitizer or soap, body wash works really well as well. So making sure that we were delivering the solutions that shoppers were looking for. Also, because salons were closed, people weren't able to get their regular treatment. So we offered a lot of at-home solutions and messaging with some of our beauty products. And then on the food side, it's at-home meal inspiration. People were cooking at home. There was a lot of recipe fatigue and looking for new ideas on how to conveniently kind of shake up the dinner routine. So how do you give them that at-home meal occasion and meal inspiration? And then ice cream. Everybody wanted ice cream during the pandemic. So
I want ice cream, even, pandemic or not.
Yep. So I think as we move forward, really truly understanding the shoppers and staying close to what I think it's going to be really important to stay close to what are those shoppers' needs and how are these going to evolve as they start to go out again. Are they like, now it's like, are you going to start styling your hair again? Let's start to, how can we save you money or time so you can go out and really enjoy now that things are opening up again?
That's a really good kind of a segue. Are you focusing, or I guess, does that same approach stay constant for your e-com shopping versus in-store shopping as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think e-com is definitely, you've got the convenience, and we want to make sure, I think with e-com, the biggest thing is making sure we help our retailers have the right content to help shoppers really truly navigate that experience and make the right decisions. And then how do we on our end kind of make sure that we're cutting through the clutter and we're driving the traffic to the e-com sites to helping to grow that. I think one of the things that the pandemic did is really truly grow click and collect and grow the adoption of these things that we've already been over investing kind of for e-com growth, and but the pandemic only made that accelerate even further.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things we've been doing is helping our retailers by investing in free delivery programs and things like that that are really going to keep people engaged. And then also making sure that our retailers have the right content for e-com.
Yeah, I know Unilever, that you guys rolled out your own online store for cleaning brands. I saw, which is super cool. We actually saw, so I don't know if you're familiar, but we have our own, we call it a COVID tracker, which was foot traffic. We were constantly monitoring, and it was cool. We saw obviously a dip in grocery store visitation, but not as much as obviously other retailers out there. So I know grocers are definitely curious or excited to get people back in. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was increasing basket growth. Is that still going to be a focus with Unilever kind of moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have that portfolio that spans the entire store essentially. So we have the ability, through our Fetch partnership and other scale initiatives and offers that we do with our retailers, we offer like the spend 15, earn 5, right, and the opportunity to really build up those baskets at retailers. And I think that absolutely will continue, because not only does it help our shoppers save money, but it also helps to grow those baskets and help keep shoppers engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we kind of talked about, and this kind of touches with a few of the talking points that we just went over, but it used to be where, in the CPG industry, hyper targeted was almost a bad word, right? You want to just get in front of as many people as possible. Do you think that's still kind of holding true, or is it more about a number of touch points but more quality as well?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a balance. I think you're going to have your broad reach vehicles. Like we still do several FSIs to get out there and just deliver offers and communication to a broad reach. I think you'll have your tentpole merchandising events that you're going to want to get out there and get a broad reach. But then there's opportunities where it does make sense to be hyper targeted, and you've got it. So it all depends on your job to be done. And then ultimately, looking at the cost to be targeted versus the cost to be broad reach.
Good point.
And I think analyzing the incrementality of each. So if you're looking at it on a cost per incremental, knowing that you want to get new users, is it going to be more effective and efficient for you to go broad reach? Or does it make more sense for you to really truly be surgical about who you're talking to? And reach those shoppers with high targeted vehicles.
And to your point, it sounds like in more cases than not, the answer's somewhere in the middle, right? Where you kind of want to do everything.
I think there's both. I think we definitely value and want to create those relationships with our shoppers. And I think that's where the targeting and the personalization is going to be key. So while you can't walk away from the broad reach, we really truly want to leverage that data and targeting so that we are giving relevant, meaningful messages and offers to our shoppers to keep them coming back and engaged, and we can develop a relationship with them.
So that's a really good, again, a good segue here. So as you're trying to figure that out, what can we as media partners or technology vendors help you with there, other than traditional media execution? How can we be more thoughtful for you?
Yeah, so I think in our world, we want to know our shoppers inside and out. And we pride ourselves on having a lot of data and having really good knowledge of that in working with our retailers. And I think anything that a vendor can do or a partner could do to help us learn even more about our shopper and help us reach them and deliver those personalized solutions in ways that we can do with our own data or a retailer's partnership is super valuable.
Yeah, I mean, data-driven marketing. We talked about this last week. It's here. It's here to stay, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and moving forward. So, I know you work across all of grocery, which I'm sure presents more challenges than not. Since each grocer is ultimately different, there are different markets, et cetera. How are you thinking about their media strategies and their go-to-market strategies? Do they all kind of have similar problems, or are you planning them separately?
Yeah, we do plan separately. We try to develop a channel strategy that's overarching, and where do we go from a channel? But each of the retailers is very different in who their shopper segment is, as well as the tools that they have available. So some retailers, we may lean very heavily into the tools that they have available. Whereas others may not be as developed in having their own tools available. So we may lean on leveraging a lot more of the customized national with a specific retailer lens. So it is a little bit of both. We have to kind of look at what the brand teams are doing, what the channel strategy is, and then really truly align to where the retailer shoppers are to deliver those custom plans.
Yeah, and are you even doing that from a market to market level, or is that more focused kind of on a national perspective?
I think it's on a retailer level. So a lot of our retailers in grocery, there are national retailers, and I think we'll have segments and shopper segments. So I think it's more based on the shopper segment than the region per se. So first we kind of start on, here's the national brand plan. And then, okay, let's look at these retailer shoppers and what are their shopper dynamics, and let's develop that program to reach the target shoppers at these retailers.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, and so I know obviously we need to be flexible with the way we're planning our media. How far in advance are you planning now versus how reactive or even proactive are you being?
That is the key question. I think it has to be somewhere in the middle. So we deal with a lot of long lead retailers. And so we will have to set our calendar and align on a merchandising plan far in advance. And I think what COVID taught us is we need to make sure that we're as nimble as possible with the messaging and the communication. So I think we need to work on developing these marketing packages and events for our retailers and secure that, but be as nimble as possible with the messaging and being able to quickly adapt and shift should circumstances with the shoppers or current events change, that we need to be a little bit more flexible with that. I think ideally in a media world, we want to get as close to near real time as we can with optimization. We're not always there. But I think what COVID reinforced is just that need to be very nimble with messaging.
Yeah, I think, to your point, I think we're kind of moving away from the traditional upfront is where everything happens kind of plan. So, a couple of the things that we experienced that I'm sure you had to replan for were, in-stock issues, panic buying, people going and really just, grabbing. I remember the whole toilet paper thing was equal parts funny and also kind of concerning. So if you take us, I mean, I think that kind of led to the growth in click and collect. So can you take us through kind of how Unilever adapted your marketing strategies as click and collect really grew?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I mentioned earlier is once the pandemic hit and we didn't know what was happening with supply of stock ups. So we did pull back on a lot of our in-store. And we put a tiny pause on kind of some of our couponing efforts so until we could see, but then quickly realized that click and collect and e-commerce, so we needed to put even more into that so that we could help the shoppers navigate this space and really make sure that we were engaging and driving share on the Unilever side. So we moved kind of some of those in-store dollars and really invested more into that e-com space. And then, as I mentioned, that free delivery and click and collect, that was a huge area for us to help our retailers with. In addition, search. is an area that we invested in for growth, as well as just making sure that the content was there, that the keywords for search is there, and that our retailers had the right e-com assets as more people started visiting retailer.com to make their purchases.
Sure. Are you finding at all that as as the world starts to return to normal a little bit, are retailers requiring different things from their media than they were at this time last year, or is it all kind of just you know in your mind what you kind of want to do, and let's just kind of go with that?
Yeah, I think it's accelerated the retailers need to have the media solutions there.
Sure.
And they are asking manufacturers to invest for growth with them, which from our side, being able to really truly leverage a retailer's 1P data is really beneficial. But yeah, we are seeing a lot of retailers make the ask that we do invest for growth in their e-com channels and their media networks.
One thing we didn't talk about that I hope is not going to catch you off guard, but the obviously with the pandemic hitting, in-store marketing was kind of took a big hit. Do you see that coming back, and if so, how fast?
Yeah, I feel like, and this is my own personal opinion, I think people miss the experience of shopping in stores. So I think in the short term, as things start to open up, I do think we're going to start to see people going in store more. And I think it's going to be more of a experiential trip than a necessity trip. So I do think we'll see, at least for the short term, that in-store experience and the in-store trips increase. I don't know. What'll be interesting to see is what that balance is, and to really truly understand the insights as to, now that people have been used to shopping online all the time, when are they going to choose to go in online, and when are they going to choose to actually have that physical trip?
Yeah.
And I think understanding the insights on what's driving each of those will help us as marketers really truly understand how to deliver what the shopper's looking for in that experience.
Yeah, and I think to add to that as well, it probably depends a lot on the retailer as well, right? So a Costco, club membership might change the reason somebody needs to visit versus just a regular grocer.
Yeah.
So I know that, kind of riffing off of that, browse a bit, the ability to browse for a user. Obviously, you're not going in store, you can't really see the entire shelf. And if you're shopping online, either on one screen or two screens or however it's going to be, browsing got a little bit more difficult to do. So clearly, you were all flexible in that you could create, the Fetch Rewards program you mentioned earlier, a lot more scale events, those types of things. Is new product innovation, something you all are focusing on as much as you were, previously, or is it just mainly getting people to buy more of what they are comfortable with?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to innovate, so I definitely think that's still a focus, and ensuring that we're delivering the right innovation to meet the needs and the demand of the shopper is 100% something that we're looking at. That's not my area per se, but I do know that innovation it's always going to be something that is a focus. From my end, it's how do you break through the clutter, and how do you really truly drive awareness of that innovation when it's out there, when you're not. I think in the e-com environment, how do you drive awareness when you don't have the full end caps that you have when people are browsing and those impulse purchases? So digitally, how do you create that experience where you're breaking through and driving awareness?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You need to make people aware of it, and then of course get it in their baskets. So data-driven marketing is obviously something you're focused on, the industry is focused on. I think, and you mentioned this, we need to be doing a better job about informing you all about, who your consumers are. Are there any gaps in kind of the resources that you have now, with, between your first party data and some of the retailer data that we can really try and hone in on and figure out a solution for?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's gaps. We're actually really ramping up that space on the Unilever side. We recently announced a new shopper marketing partnership with ARC, and we're building a really strong data-driven platform with them, leveraging our data. So I feel like from a data perspective, I think we've got a lot. I think and then we just need to figure out where that matches up with our retailers' data and how we can truly bring those solutions. And then I think the biggest thing from a vendor perspective is how do we deliver unique solutions to truly engage with the shoppers in new and different ways?
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I guess, I have a couple more questions, and then I want to get to, I see we have a couple of questions from the audience, so I want to make sure we get to those as well. One thing, as we're looking forward into 21 and beyond that, given all the shifts and changes that happened, what are you kind of predicting for the industry? And anything you're excited about or pessimistic about?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball because it's been a wild ride this last year, and I don't think anybody would have predicted where we are now. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happened. I definitely think e-com and digital and the need to be there with the shopper and that data-driven marketing is going to be the wave of the future. But as we just talked about, I don't think we can forget in-store. I think we need to truly understand what that in-store experience will look like, and how do we meet the needs of the shopper in that space. I think purpose-driven marketing is going to be extremely important. I think shoppers are going to remember the brands that were with them during the pandemic, and purpose. It kind of brought everybody, the pandemic kind of brought the world together, and purpose is important, and it's important to give back and do good for the community. And I think the shoppers are looking to have that purpose woven through in brands communication, and those are the brands that are going to do well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And especially with, the need to kind of have an omni-channel approach, right? So generating, I guess, purpose-driven marketing, not just on a mobile phone, but then how do you tell that complete story throughout all their different mediums?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any, I guess with that in mind, then, how are you evaluating campaigns or programs that you put in, you put into market that you want to really solve for that problem?
Yeah, the evaluation really changes because they all have different jobs to be done. And I think one of the things that we need to try to make sure that we're not just solely evaluating every single program that we do on return on investment. And I think that obviously that's very important, but really truly understanding what are we trying to do? Are we trying to get new shoppers to buy our product? Are we trying to drive category growth? It's a tough question because I think each of our programs needs to be evaluated in a very different way based on what the objective is. And I think from our standpoint and the marketer's standpoint is we really truly need to identify what that job to be done is in order to really truly develop the ways of measuring it.
That's a really good answer, I think. And also something that now that you've mentioned it, I think us as vendors or as partners need to be doing a better job on our end as well with, from the jump, level setting with, okay, what's the goal here? And how can we better build a program to actually solve for that, even if it's not, primarily or like secondarily focused on anything other than ROI, right? It's a delicate dance, if you will,
Yeah, it is. I think we've been so trained as an industry to look at ROI. And I think ROI is definitely important, and it's definitely something that we look at with everything. But we need to really truly understand what we're trying to do, and did we achieve that objective first and foremost?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, last question, or I guess a two-part question before we get into the audience. Can you, or at least for your, for what you were doing with Unilever in the last 12, 18, 16 months. What were the biggest challenges that you can kind of think of?
I think the biggest challenge for us was the unknown. And this was a really, really strong test of our ability to really, truly be agile and nimble. And I'm pretty proud of what we were able to come up with on a short turnaround time and how we were able to adapt. But it was really, truly a time that we didn't know what the environment was going to be in the next month. So really trying to develop programs and think ahead was a true test to how agile we really could be. And I think there were some things that we did really well, and there were some learning things that we got out of that as we start to plan for the future. But overall, I think that was the biggest challenge of it all.
Yeah, and I will personally say credit goes to the brand managers and the media planners who were planning and replanning all of last year. I'm sure they had a lot of extra hours and probably a cup more than a few extra drinks. So all right, cool. Well, I wanted to save some time here, so let's take a look at some of the questions from the audience. First one. You've had to adapt and alter consumer media and digital habits in many ways this past year, especially. What are you seeing when it comes to those types of behavioral changes, and how are you adapting?
I think it's part of the fast adoption of the click and collect and Instacart and all of those. I think that goes back to where we talked before. It's really, truly making sure that we are developing those comprehensive plans to drive that growth and make sure Unilever has a share of voice on those vehicles. And then I think it's going to be truly understanding what that shopper behavior is when we figure out what the new norm is. How much of that is going to stay. Obviously, this is an area that we are going to continue to lean into for growth. But then determining how much we focus on kind of the in-store piece and traditional shopper marketing tools is going to be honestly something that we're going to have to figure out as we see what that new norm becomes.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, as we touched on, I think it's up to everybody to be a little bit more flexible and understand that you used the word nimble, which I think is perfect. Being nimble is going to be huge. Another cool question here. So do you have any examples of where you have been able to listen to your consumers, either through solicited feedback or based on shopping patterns, and change your product or marketing strategies? And if no, or if yes, when should you not listen to them?
I think we do a lot of consumer listening, and our insights team kind of throughout COVID would be giving us a lot of information. Like we had daily, weekly reads on this is what the consumer's saying, this is what the consumer's shopping. And I think we immediately altered a lot of our messaging and our creative. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier with the beauty and personal, we really dialed back on that and focused a lot more on the value and convenience and hygiene messages. And we'll continue to evolve that. And we're starting to kind of lean back in a little bit more into that space. But a lot of that came directly from what we were hearing from our shoppers and what we knew that the needs of them that they were looking for.
So do you see or predict at least anything kind of gearing back towards the more single product type of creative or anything like that as shoppers go in store?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and the single type of creative, the single focused creative, that still stayed.
Right.
I mean, we still have brands that we're going to do their solo creative. And I think we're going to have to think through what the in-store experience is going to probably be a very different message than what the omni message is, depending on how they shop and what we're finding out is the motivations for doing both. I think we're going to continue to listen. We've started to do a little bit more of hey, you're going out, get ready to go out and live your life again. That kind of messaging will start to be more infused, and we'll continue to do the listening to find out kind of where we go next.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so here's a question that I think you answered some of it. So I'll read the question, then I'll kind of change it. How have shifts in consumer behavior over the past year forced modifications to your business goals, and how do you measure success? So we kind of talked about that, but one thing that I don't want to understate is, the difference in brands that you work on.
Yeah.
From ice cream to, personal hygiene products. How do you kind of modify based on the actual brand that you're working on?
Yeah, so that'll be based on kind of what the individual insights were. So we found out, so ice cream, we were honestly like, you didn't have to do a lot of marketing for ice cream last year because everybody was eating a lot of ice cream. So we adapted kind of based on that. Where are we going to drive that? Foods again was a very different insight than what we saw with personal care. It was less of that one-stop shop and more about how can we give you the convenient meal solutions? Because we had a couple different kinds of shoppers. We had those that were looking for convenience, and we had those that were like, hey, let's start experimenting. I've got all this time. I'm going to start baking. I'm going to start doing all these things. So how can you cater to the needs of those shoppers? So it's really, truly understanding. It all starts with the shopper. And if you understand your shopper, then you can understand how to market to them better.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any times, and this is just me being curious, were there any times that, from within the same category of brands that some things worked for one brand and not for another?
Yeah. I think that our shoppers we have a wide range. I mean, when you look in personal care, we've got Suave, Dove, Nexus, Tresemme. So they all have different value propositions and different shopper bases. So it's kind of really truly looking at who are the shoppers that are Dove shoppers, Suave shoppers, and developing kind of those specific value propositions and messages for each of those shoppers to get them to convert or buy more.
Yeah, no, and that's, again, goes back to kind of what the theme of this whole chat has been, right? We're using we want to get further down the funnel to understand who this exact shopper is, and then reach them and tell a story that they can buy into and grow their basket.
Yeah, and our brand teams from a national perspective kind of develop what is the brand's overall value proposition. So that'll happen in terms of all the upper funnel. So my job with lower funnel marketing is really truly like lean on what the brands have done and take that national brand message and how do I bring it down to convert shoppers at the retail level. So a lot of that really truly leveraging the brand insights really didn't sit with me. My job was more of what is my call to action going to be at the retail level to get them to buy Dove over a competition, or how do I get them to buy more of Unilever brands at our particular retailer.
Right. Yeah. And, obviously those are the two main drivers of revenue, right? Getting somebody who's not already a shopper, turning them into a shopper, or if somebody is a shopper, getting them buying more things.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess, as we kind of start wrapping things up, is your focus this year, are you trying to get more people into grocery? Are you being tasked with that? Or are you just trying to focus on whether or not they're buying through click and collect or doing something or in store? It doesn't matter so much to you. You just want to get them buying at grocery one way or the other.
Yeah, no, I think it's a combination of both. We definitely want to continue to accelerate e-com growth. So you will see us working with our retailers a lot to really drive that. I mean, that's been something that Unilever is definitely focused on, accelerating e-com growth globally. So we will be focused there, but again, overall, we want to help drive our overall retail sales.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that probably also changes based on how far along the retailer is with their data capabilities and or online shopping capabilities.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to that a little bit, a lot of the brands had to kind of adjust and adapt quickly to address some of these issues in 2020. Did you find that retailers were more willing to be nimble with you, or certain grocers were more willing to be nimble on some things versus others, or was everybody just saying saying, let's get people buying again?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a learning experience for everyone, and I think everyone was as nimble as they could, and everybody understood we were in just a very, very unique time frame. And I think our retail partners were really great and understanding, and we really worked together to build these programs and bring them to life.
Awesome. Hey, Izzy, I think are we out of time?
You are, yes. I don't know if you have any last minute thoughts you want to share.
No, I think Jamie, that was fantastic. I'm so thankful for you and Izzy as well for hosting us, and Jamie, this was, I think, great content, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, thank you both so much, and for closing out our day on the consumer comeback. It's been a really incredible afternoon full of some insightful programming and content from both our speakers and moderators. And a special thank you to Ground Truth for being today's presenting partner. We hope you will all join us tomorrow for our Future of Esports and Gaming Summit, starting at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be joined by marketing leaders from EA, Anheuser-Busch InBev, Ford, MasterCard, Chipotle, and many more exceptional brands. So thank you all again for joining us, and we hope